Chapter 261. A Step into the Darkness 1. Fry Starlight's POV. Face to face with Oliver Kahn, whose suffocating killing intent still weighed down on me like a storm. Just how many lives had he taken with those hands? You've really lost your way this time, Lord Starlight. Oliver walked toward me in slow, deliberate steps, while I staggered back with a half-smile. I was just looking for a place to spend the holiday. Heard the winter atmosphere at Mooncastle is lovely this time of year. He didn't respond with words, but with something else entirely. I barely leapt back in time to dodge his sudden strike. For a moment I thought I had succeeded, until the burning pain in my gut told me otherwise. With a horizontal gash across my abdomen, I stumbled backward. Oliver followed immediately. Your senses are impressive. I barely managed to block his daggers with my sword, struggling to hold my ground. What are you talking about? I failed to dodge that. I gritted out. I was aiming for your intestines. Sparks burst from the clashing of metal as Oliver ramped up the speed of his strikes. All I could do was parry. Did you really think you'd walk out of here alive just because you're the young lord of House Starlight? Slash. He continued tearing through me with ease. The sound of clashing metal echoed throughout Mooncastle. If you thought your name alone would be enough. How disappointing. It was humiliating. How he managed to beat me down and mock me at the same time, while I could barely breathe under the pressure of his attacks. With a sudden kick, he launched me into the wall once again. Just a few seconds into the clash, and the place was already starting to crumble. I gasped for air and stood, leaning on Valerian. He'd asked me if I thought my status alone would keep me safe. To be honest, I didn't think so either. Coming here like this without a plan or backup, that was sheer idiocy. It was clear I couldn't get past Oliver Kahn's eyes because of a skill he possessed. Soul Domain. He could extend his aura to cover a massive range. Anything that crossed that space, he would sense it instantly. The only way to bypass it was to either have a skill stronger than his, or simply be stronger than him. And clearly I had neither. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have come here this way. It was reckless, completely reckless. But the system's directive was the only clue I had. I had no other options. Clang. I fought back with Valerian as the wounds on my body piled up one after another. Do you want to die? His daggers cut across my face. He did it on purpose. Yeah, I did actually. Until recently, I really wanted to die. But I can't die yet. Dying pointlessly like this wasn't an option. Then show me how you'll survive. It hadn't even been 10 minutes, and I was already covered in blood. I had no idea what kind of performance Oliver wanted from me. But somehow it felt like he didn't actually want to kill me. Oliver Kahn wasn't known for talking, only acting. Toying with his opponents like this wasn't his style. If he really meant to kill me, I'd be dead already. I didn't know much about his character, especially since in the version of the story I wrote, Sansa didn't survive. The Oliver I knew and the one standing before me were vastly different. But I was certain they were the same man. And that was the bet I made, the reason I hadn't used anything but Valerian and not the Dark Sister. Why did you come here, Fry Starlight? Boom! Another explosion rocked the hall, splattering more of my blood across the floor. I kept fighting and talking at the same time. I came to see the princess. And why do you want to see her? The conversation was turning strange. Oliver answered me so casually, as if we were on a stroll. Meanwhile, I struggled just to stay upright under the pressure of his onslaught. Let alone speak. How many injuries had I taken by now? I'm worried about her, I replied. The truth was, I came because of the mission, but that wasn't a complete lie. If I could help the princess, I would. I want to help her. I said that, panting as Oliver paused to look at me. I had no idea what expression he wore under that mask. But those crimson eyes, they never lost their glow. I see. He spoke calmly, while a terrifying blue aura swirled around his right dagger. The pressure of his aura lifted his long white hair into the air, and I froze in place. Now you may die. I didn't even see how he moved his hand, but his dagger shot out like a missile, aiming straight for my face. Even with my hawk eyes, I could barely follow it. In my current state, that would have killed me without a doubt. Damn it! I cursed as everything turned black. But it wasn't the usual darkness of losing consciousness. It was something else entirely. Oliver Kahn's explosive dagger stopped mere inches from my face, ensnared by hundreds of black threads, cocooning it like a spider's web. I recognized it immediately. That shadow ability. Fry! Sansa rushed toward us, her steps quick and sharp. My battered body trembled as I looked up at her. I noticed small changes. Her hair had darkened, and there were shadows under her eyes, but I was in no condition to dwell on the details. Hey, Sansa. The princess frowned the moment she saw the state I was in. I guess this scene had become familiar by now. Sansa clenched her fist, and the shadows dispersed. Oliver's dagger clattered to the ground. What is the meaning of this, Oliver? He remained calm, just as he had the entire time he was beating the hell out of me. He committed a crime by trespassing into royal grounds. He's someone I know, she said firmly. Even so, he must be punished. And he already has been. She pointed to the gashes and bruises from my friendly exchange with Oliver. Oliver stared at her in silence for a moment, then gave a slow nod. As you wish. Satisfied, Sansa exhaled in relief and turned back to me. Sneaking into royal territory. I'm not sure whether to call you brave or just insane. Probably a little bit of both, I said, lifting myself up with effort. Then I dismissed Balerion too, hoping to ease the constant pressure Oliver had been pouring over me. Standing before the princess, I could finally get a proper look at the changes that had come over her. It had only been a few days since our last meeting, yet she already looked different. Why did you come here, Fry? Sansa asked, with Oliver still standing behind her. I came to see you, of course. You left without saying a word. A brief silence. Are you worried about me? She seemed genuinely surprised by the idea. Isn't that what friends are for? I shrugged casually. Sansa gave me a small, quiet smile. But you're not really that kind of friend, are you? What kind of scumbag do you take me for? I answered her question with another. She sighed, defeated. Fine, there was a bit of sincerity in what you said. Come on. You're my guest now. Sansa turned and gestured for me to follow her. Chapter 262. A Step into the Darkness. 2. The princess had a strange gift for reading people's faces. The fact that she hadn't kicked me out meant that the mission wasn't the only reason I came here. At the very least, it meant our bond wasn't a complete lie. As she led the way, I was left alone with Oliver. Glancing at the masked man behind her, I couldn't help but think about the shift I'd seen in him. Hey, was that whole performance really necessary? Why did he play along with me up until now? I wanted to know the answer. I don't know what you're talking about. He feigned ignorance. Aren't you the Grand Warden? You're supposed to be at the Emperor's side, watching his back. What's with your obsession with Sansa? I didn't expect him to respond, but he did. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Cryptic answer. Oliver walked beside Sansa and tossed one final warning over his shoulder. Be careful, Fry Starlight. Your punishment may not be over. It depends on what you do next. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I quickly followed after them. As we wandered through the cold halls of Moon Castle, I started to notice something strange. Do you usually live here alone? Aside from the three of us, the castle was completely empty. Normally it's full of servants, but this time it's empty because of some circumstances. I had a pretty good idea what kind of circumstances she meant. Eventually, Sansa led us to what looked like a reception room. I sat across from her, a wooden table between us. Oliver Kahn placed 2 cups of a green drink that I guessed was tea. I glanced at the cup, then at the Grand Warden in turn. What? Don't you like tea? He asked. I never said that. Then drink it. It's the only thing I'm good at making. The Grand Warden, preparing tea? That alone proved how empty the castle truly was. For a second, I even feared he might have poisoned it, but the content in my cup was identical to the one he served the princess. Cautiously, I took a sip, only to be surprised by how good it tasted. Sansa, who had been quietly watching me for a while, finally spoke. I suppose you're wondering why this place is so empty, and why I left so suddenly. I am, I replied simply. This is why. She raised her palm, and black flames burst forth, spiraling into tendrils of shadow. A wave of pressure rippled out, sending a chill down my spine. My powers, they've been getting harder to control, so I chose to isolate myself until I learned to fully contain them. Her words were expected, but I couldn't help but wonder if she was even allowed to share something like that with me. So that's why the castle is empty. She nodded. Yes. Aren't you overreacting? You seem fine to me. That was a lie, of course. It hadn't even been a week since we last met. Yet she looked noticeably different, especially her aura. It may be an overreaction, but it's better this way. I don't want anyone getting hurt because of me. Her voice wavered slightly at the end. Did something happen recently? I tried nudging her toward the incident at the temple, but she shook her head. Nothing happened. But, she hesitated for a moment before locking eyes with me. That seemed to give her the push to continue. Lately, I've been able to sleep. The moment she said that, I remembered how she used to be during the island trial. She never slept at all back then. That's a good thing, right? She nodded faintly. Yes, but in return, I've started having nightmares. What kind of nightmares? A good friend probably wouldn't press her for details, but I'm not that kind of friend. I needed to understand, for her sake. Thankfully, our relationship was strong enough for her to feel safe telling me. Nightmares of when I was kidnapped, of how I killed everyone, how I spilled their blood. And recently, I had a dream where I killed one of the maids. The moment she said that, a realization struck me. May I ask, where exactly did that nightmare take place? I asked carefully. Her response came quickly. The temple. As soon as she uttered those words, I glanced at her, then at Oliver standing behind her. He was staring at me with those crimson eyes, as if daring me to say another word. One wrong move and I'd lose my head. Noticing the sudden tension in the air, Sansa spoke quickly. But they're just dreams. There's no need to worry. She really didn't know. They were lying to her, letting her believe everything was fine. Sansa wasn't stupid. Had she really been fooled so easily? I swallowed hard and played along. But staying here all alone, isn't it a little lonely? She turned toward Oliver. I have Oliver with me, so I'm not really alone. With a silent guy like him, I doubt he makes much of a difference. So, how about I make you an offer, Your Highness? An offer? I smiled and gestured toward myself. How about I stop by from time to time? Keep you company so this cold castle doesn't feel so empty. But, no worries. I can handle myself if anything happens. I've got Balerion the Black Terror with me, and I'm not afraid to use it. Sansa fell quiet for a while, clearly caught off guard by the offer. She eventually looked to Oliver. He stared at her in return, and in that moment he noticed the difference. Small but undeniable. The princess seemed livelier today, more than she had in days. And the reason was me. Oliver closed his eyes briefly before responding. As long as I'm around, and he only visits in the morning, I'll allow it. The moment he said that, I struggled to hold back a grin of victory. This was it. I'd secured the chance to follow the system's advice properly. I promise I won't disappoint, I said. Sansa looked at me in silence. Then her eyes widened slightly. I look forward to it. But, Fry, you've been acting like nothing's wrong this whole time. Are you actually okay? What do you mean? She pointed at me. You're bleeding a lot. What? I looked down, and realized I was sitting in a pool of blood from my earlier wounds. Ah, damn it. And just like that, I collapsed from blood loss. This is really embarrassing. Fry passed out in his chair. Oliver Kahn sighed. while Sansa rushed over to tend to him. The Grand Warden watched the two of them in silence, thoughts swirling in his mind. He had sworn he would not fail this time. This time he would save her. His only family. Chapter 263. The King's Shadow 1. 15 days until the mission deadline. Fry Starlight collapsed unconscious before both the princess and Oliver Kahn. Without hesitation, Sansa rushed to tend to him, doing what she could to stop the bleeding. "He's lost a lot of blood. Was all of this really necessary?" she asked. "He broke the law, and he's paid the price. It was necessary." Fry understood that well. That much had become clear to the masked warden during their brief encounter. That confrontation had been more psychological than physical. Fry was capable of so much more, yet he allowed Oliver to wound him without much resistance. In doing so, Fry conveyed his willingness to cooperate, to remain on the Grand Warden's good side. If he'd resisted in earnest, their clash could have brought the entire castle down. Oliver ultimately decided to allow Fry to meet the princess again, though only under his watchful eye. Perhaps, just perhaps, this would help pull her out of her growing darkness. That was the thought on Oliver's mind as he carried Frey's battered body to the front gate, the very place where the young man had previously taken down 2 elite guards. Oliver's spirit domain extended across the entire Moon Castle, and if necessary, he could expand it further, at the cost of tremendous aura consumption. Nothing happened within his range without him knowing. And yet, instead of returning to his usual post at the princess's side, Oliver turned toward a different destination. Moving faster than even Madame A could track, he darted toward one of the most shadowed corners of the Valyrian province. Within the suffocating dark, only the faint crimson glow of his eyes lit the way. He stood still, gaze fixed on a single point in space. "Show yourself." His voice, calm as ever, carried a rare undercurrent of impatience. And in response, a figure emerged from the gloom. A shimmer of green light slid over the man's frame, gradually revealing him. Tall, robed in black, and wearing a steel helm, the man stared back at Oliver with piercing pale green eyes. "Your instincts are as sharp as ever." The mechanical tone in his voice and the way he masked his presence left no doubt. It was him, Mist Umbra, the current master of the Shadow Court. "Seems your injuries healed up well." Mist had taken a direct hit from Astaroth during the Empire's failed assault on the Ultras continent. It had sidelined him for a long time. But now the Empire's deadliest assassin had returned. Mist and Oliver, both silent by nature, neither particularly fond of pleasantries. The air between them was tense, heavy. "What do you want?" "The princess." "I'm handling it." "Are you?" Mist circled him slowly. "There have been signs. Many signs. And what have you done about them?" Oliver remained silent. "Nothing," Mist answered for him. "You've done nothing. You let emotion cloud your judgment, too blinded to act on even the simplest of truths." The pressure between them thickened. 2 SS ranked awakened in one place wasn't something the land could take lightly. "Did you really come here just to spout self-righteous nonsense?" Oliver asked, his tone edged with irritation. "I came to tell you this. If you won't deliver the final blow, someone else will. I said I'm handling it. Are you planning to interfere with the contract I made with Mikar?" The name dropped like a stone. Mist hesitated for a brief moment, but didn't falter. "I don't know what agreement you struck with the Emperor, but it's time you started acting like yourself." He stepped closer until they stood face to face. "Act like the assassin we trained you to be." Mist's words tugged at buried memories, ones Oliver had long cast aside. "I no longer serve the Shadow Court. You can't run forever." "Oh, I can. And if the court wants my head, let them come take it." Oliver brushed past him, voice low and deadly. "If the court comes after me, blood will be spilled. But whose blood? That's still undecided." Mist said nothing. He wasn't ready. Not to challenge the man who was once his rival, and his friend. "She's dangerous, Oliver," he warned, voice quieter now. "Open your eyes before it's too late." a final warning, maybe even a last mercy. I told you, I'm handling it. You'd better be. With those words, mist vanished entirely, leaving behind only a hazy afterimage of his aura. Oliver didn't bother looking his way. He simply walked off in silence. No one knew what was running through his mind as he pulled out an old pendant from his coat. A delicate silver chain with an oval gem at its center. He opened it. Inside was a carefully preserved photograph. A woman in her prime, golden-haired with radiant amber eyes. She looked just like Sansa, back when she was still full of life, only older, more refined. It was her mother. Oliver gazed at the image for a moment, then closed the locket with renewed resolve. That night, he continued what he had always done. Until the very end. Fry Starlight's POV. 10 days until the mission deadline. 5 days had passed since I started visiting Sansa every morning. 5 days spent chatting for hours, waiting for something, anything to happen. But so far, the only thing I gained was more hostile glares from Oliver Kahn, who clearly regretted agreeing to my daily visits. He must not have expected this outcome when he allowed it. I kept thinking the direct advice's impediment would strike soon. But everything went smoothly, as if that future I had glimpsed never existed. I sat in my room, still mulling over the cursed mission dropped on me like a noose. Was this really it? Just talk to the princess for 10 more days? I tapped against my desk's worn wooden surface. God knows how many times I've replaced it after smashing it to splinters. It was midnight, and I couldn't sleep no matter what I tried. No matter how much I replayed it, what I saw in that future vision was a demon. An entity far too powerful to be human. Humans weren't supposed to host things like that. Not yet, at least. There was a concept far in the future of people becoming vessels for demons. But that wasn't supposed to happen anytime soon. If what happened to Sansa was the same case, then her salvation was literally impossible. And I couldn't do anything to stop it. I found myself standing at a dead end, utterly helpless, with nothing left but to wait, and hope. And hope was such a cursed thing. But even with the little I had left, I decided to use everything at my disposal. I opened the system interface and checked the affection-based abilities, especially the one tied to third-person perspective. Thankfully, Sansa's affection points had already reached 50, unlocking the deeper version of the skill. This time, I wanted to go further, see what she saw. Maybe it would bring me closer to the truth. I took a deep breath and activated the third-person POV, bracing myself for whatever came next. Chapter 264. The King's Shadow, 2. But the image I expected. The princess with her once golden hair now turned black never appeared. Instead, as a phantom-like projection of myself, I drifted through a realm of endless darkness. Void. Absolute void. Wrapped in a cocoon of shadows, I began to wonder if the ability had malfunctioned, or if something was interfering. It had never behaved like this before, and the longer I remained trapped in that abyss, the stronger a certain feeling grew inside me. An unbearable sense of unease, as if something or someone was watching me from beyond the veil. To make matters worse, I couldn't deactivate the third-person POV. I was stuck. Minutes passed, then hours, and the fear only grew. Something is wrong. Where was I? What was this place? Being stranded in the dark for this long. It was torture. It felt like I was sinking deep into the bottom of the ocean, cut off from all light. I tried to break free. I fought. I clawed and thrashed and pushed against the void, until something grabbed me by the throat. A sticky, black hand clamped down on my neck. Its claws dug into my skin, and I couldn't even comprehend what was happening. I was supposed to be a projection, intangible, but this pain, it was real, so real. I tried to grab at the hand crushing my windpipe, but it was useless. The thing crawled over my skin, and a whisper echoed directly into my ear. D, 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 D. The word repeated endlessly, a hushed mantra of death as the grip tightened around my throat. I began losing consciousness, unable to speak or move. All I could see was darkness, a hand tightening around my throat, trying to steal my life, and something whispering in my ear. At some point, I stopped hearing it chant for my death. Instead, I heard only the pounding of my heart, thundering in my chest. My awareness began to fade completely, but in the final moment, a surge of intense blue light exploded, wrapping around my body, tearing away the black hand, and dragging me back to reality. Seconds later, I jolted awake, falling violently from my desk chair, drenched in cold sweat. I clutched my throat, right where that hand had gripped me, only to feel something slick and damp still clinging to my skin. What just happened? That was the first question I asked. But I froze again, when I saw something crawling along my arm. Something black, laced with red. A shadow? No, it was the same thing that had tried to kill me moments ago. Impossible. I was in a ghost-like projection. None of this should have been possible. And yet, there it was. The claws that dug into my neck. The sticky black hand. In a panic, I unleashed a full-force wave of violet aura. My full power condensed into a single burst that instantly obliterated the mass of darkness clinging to me. It evaporated in a blink, leaving me stunned where I stood. Not because of what had just happened, but because I recognized it. I recognized that power, that place, that shadow. The king's shadow. No. There's no way. That kind of power shouldn't be able to be mimicked by a human. How could a mere human replicate a power that only one of the strongest high demons in existence possessed? A power that came directly from him. I couldn't even bring myself to say his name, afraid that doing so might trigger something unforgivable. I wanted so badly to be wrong. But the reality was too clear, and what I felt just now was far too real. With something like that involved, I could no longer rely on the direct advice alone to deal with what was coming. That thing had just nullified a system ability right in front of my eyes. I had to be sure. I needed to confirm the truth of what I'd just seen. Without realizing it, I found myself preparing to use another future snapshot. My second since all this began. This is going to cost more achievement points, but I had no other choice at this point. Show me the future. 10 days from now. I spoke to the system, and in an instant another 1,000 achievement points were drained. The world shifted around me as I swallowed hard, bracing for what I was about to see. I even questioned whether what I was seeing counted as the future. I knew little about time and space. Wasn't the future supposed to be uncertain? Was what I saw truly the future, or merely one of countless possibilities? I thought hard about it, even as the scene began to take shape. Once again, I was flying high above the moon castle, or what was left of it. This time, the future showed no mercy. The Valyrian domain, an entire province reduced to ash, a bloody massacre had unfolded inside. Among the corpses, inside the ruins of the moon castle, 2 mutilated bodies lay in a pool of blood, limbs shredded, wounds grotesque. The first was Oliver Kahn, and the second was me. I'm dead. I couldn't even be surprised. Not before a guttural, inhuman roar shattered the air like a thunderclap. In the distance, I saw a monstrous figure rise, shadow swirling around it, and clash against a man descending from the sky, wielding a colossal thunder spear. Mikar was fighting that thing. Their battle shook the heavens. A shockwave of overwhelming power threw me backward, and I returned to the present. Back in my room, frozen still, trying to process what I just witnessed. I died. Sansa killed me. So much for the direct advice. To hell with that. I'm dead, you bastard system. Was that really it? That simple? No. It wasn't enough. Darkness swirled in my vision as thoughts exploded in my mind. Couldn't die yet. Not like this. Not without doing something. I found myself sprawled in my chair, staring blankly at the ceiling, a strained smile curling my lips. Looks like I really will have to kill you, Sansa. Chapter 265. Born from Darkness. 1. Fry Starlight's POV. -9 days until the mission ends. I didn't sleep at all that night. Sunlight crept into my room, casting its golden glow as I sat motionless, drained by everything I'd seen the night before. If my fears were even partially correct, then this mission might be far beyond my reach. No matter how strong I am, I can't take on a monster wielding a power tied to one of the 10 upper seats. My only option now is to trust the same system that's guided me this far. If it assigned me this mission, then there must be a way to complete it, no matter how overwhelming it seems. After all, it's been classified as a main mission, not a final one. There has to be a way. That thought echoed in my mind as I left my room and headed toward the temple. My daily routine was unchanged. I'd attend morning sessions at the temple, spend 2 hours visiting the princess, and then return to train with Melina and Snow. That's what my life had become, waiting for the obstacle the system's direct advice promised to throw in my path. Sansa Valerian's POV. Morning broke, ushering in another day. I lay quietly on the bed in my small chamber, just one of dozens of empty rooms within the cold, deserted halls of Moon Castle. The place was too quiet, and somehow unbearably loud at the same time. Kill, death, blood. With a tired hand, I brushed my hair aside and looked at the strands between my fingers. It was now jet black. Felt like I was losing myself, piece by piece, and that hurt, because it meant losing the last fragment of her. My mother. I couldn't even mourn properly. A chilling numbness had wrapped around my heart, stealing away everything except the void. Humans are not born equal. I learned that the moment I came into this world as a princess, daughter of the most powerful man alive, the one who ruled above all. People called it a blessing, a life to envy, but the truth couldn't be further from that. It was just another kind of curse. Death, blood, kill. It started 2 years ago. On a bitter winter night, the winds howled through the Moon Castle, as everyone inside was taken, kidnapped by monsters from the other continent. They called me lucky to have survived while the others died. But did I really survive? The girl who returned that night, was she still Sansa Valerian, the princess? Or something else entirely? For 2 years I couldn't sleep. I no longer needed food or water to survive. These unnatural powers slowly separated me from the rest of humanity. And I couldn't run from that reality anymore. I had been denied the world of dreams. Until recently, that familiar heaviness in my eyes, the urge to close them, it had returned. And for a moment I was happy. But even that simple gift came with a price. I'd regained the ability to sleep. But it came with voices, whispers that sounded like a war raging inside my head. Blood, death, kill, destroy, tear them apart. Whose voice was it? It never stopped. Kept trying to plant those vile thoughts inside me. Even invading my dreams. Reality is a nightmare, and my dreams are worse. I resisted. I still do. I know I'm not alone. Oliver is with me. I have friends. The ones I met in the elite class. And Fry. I have a place to return to, something to hold on to, something that gives me a reason to fight. But the drowsiness was stronger. With bloodshot eyes I tried to resist, but I couldn't. They shut at last. And a single tear slipped down my cheek.
I'm sorry.
And just like that, the nightmare began again. Her body lay upon a cold, steel table beneath a piercing white light that blinded her golden eyes. Surrounding her were dozens of masked figures, cloaked in black. Their hands were soaked in crimson blood, lying on that cold surface. The princess was consumed by an agony beyond imagination. She had been forced to remain conscious as those monsters carried out their grotesque experiments on her. They had sliced open her chest, from just beneath her neck down to her stomach. Her organs and torn flesh were strewn across the table, soaked in a terrifying pool of blood. They cut so deep, their blades reached her barely beating heart. From above, a rounded object descended, placed directly atop it. At that point, the pain had become so overwhelming that the princess could no longer grasp reality. "She's enduring it better than we expected," one of the masked men remarked. Royal blood isn't something to take lightly, his companion replied. They were thrilled. At last, they had a subject who might survive their dark ambitions. But are we really placing something that valuable inside her? One of them questioned. Do it. She's just a prototype. She'll die the moment her purpose is fulfilled. The masked figures debated eagerly, while the princess heard nothing but a grating hum, a blinding light, and pain that devoured her soul. At that moment, Sansa had no concept of what pain truly meant. She had lived her entire life within the safety of the royal palace, cradled in her mother's warmth. She had known nothing but care and affection. But now, she was shackled to a filthy table, wide awake, her chest sliced open. Her skin was so delicate the scalpel glided through it like silk. The ultras continued their savage procedure, cutting through her flesh as she watched, unable to stop the endless flow of her own blood. Was it painful? No. Pain was too mild a word for it. It was something far worse. At first, she screamed, her voice echoing through the chamber, until she nearly blacked out. But the ultras didn't allow her that escape. They kept her awake, forcing her to endure it all. Eventually, her throat went dry. The light faded from her eyes, and something within Sansa died in that room. She survived the experiment. Barely. Afterward, they threw her back into her cell. There, she clung to her mother like a lifeline. The ultras had abducted many. Sansa, her mother, the servants of Moon Castle, and several distant members of the royal family. They all shared the same fate. Trapped inside a pitch-black prison, deprived of light, stripped of all signs of civilization, they endured, starving, unable to find even the smallest scrap to eat. All they were given was foul, contaminated water. And so the days dragged on, one after another. Human bodies were resilient thanks to aura. But most of the captives were ordinary people, non-combatants. They couldn't use their power. Not here. As time passed, the line between humans and beast grew thin. All that separated them were fragile mental barriers, barely keeping their primal instincts at bay. But certain conditions can shatter those barriers. Starvation to the brink of death. One of the cruelest, slowest ways to die. Paired with the psychological torment of isolation and darkness, they began to unravel, losing their minds piece by piece. All it took was one final push. Just a spark to set the descent in motion. After days of relentless hunger, the first to fall was a middle-aged maid from Moon Castle. Her body gave in to starvation, and the poisoned water only hastened her death. Her corpse was left there, lifeless. They didn't even have the strength to bury her. Time continued its cruel march. At first, they saw her as a person, a familiar face they had lived beside. But eventually, she became nothing more than a slab of meat. Meat they had been denied for far too long. Chapter 266. Born from Darkness. 2. One day, Sansa opened her eyes, having dozed off in her mother's lap, only to be met with a nightmare. For men crouched over the corpse, tearing into it like starving beasts. Their blood-stained mouths, their monstrous, twisted expressions. She saw everything with her own eyes, eyes that had long grown accustomed to the darkness. It was grotesque, incomprehensible, especially to someone like her who no longer even felt hunger or thirst. She buried her face in her mother's arms, unwilling to look any further. But she was startled when she felt saliva drip onto her from above. "Mother?" she whispered, only to find her mother staring at the scene with eyes full of longing. Sansa wasn't the only one whose body had been tampered with, but she was the only one who survived it intact. The others were left with nothing but bestial urges, stripped of reason. And after one more week, the prison descended into total savagery. Friends turned on friends. Companions tore each other apart. With frail bodies broken by starvation, they resorted to cannibalism. Blood spilled, mixing with the filth of the cold dungeon floor. Even Sansa and her mother weren't spared. The princess watched her mother turn into a ravenous creature, fighting over scraps of human flesh. They slaughtered one another before her eyes. And the worst part was that her mother had joined them. They devoured each other. They drank human blood without end. They had numbered over 100 in the beginning, but now, only a few dozen remained. As corpses piled up, the survivors turned the carnage into a feast, gnawing on flesh, licking bone clean. And when the meat was gone, and madness had fully consumed them, they became monsters, creatures far removed from anything human. They fought like wild animals, and some even made love in front of everyone. With nothing left to hold on to, she found solace only in the darkness that wrapped around her like a shroud. What her eyes beheld was nothing short of vile, a sight she could neither accept nor comprehend. She rejected it, denied its reality, and in response to her plea, the darkness awakened. That same darkness they had lived in for so long came to life, twisting, rising around her. It had fangs, hands, and eyes that glared at the depraved husks that once called themselves human, before tearing through them one by one. Blades of pitch-black shadow, swift as death itself, slashed through the mad crowd, tearing bodies apart and splattering blood in grotesque torrents. They all died, all but her mother, who collapsed to the ground, trembling, paralyzed by what she had just witnessed. "Mother!" Sansa whispered through tear-filled eyes, reaching out with trembling hands. She stepped toward her, only for her mother to crawl back, shaking violently. "And no, stay back. Mother, don't come any closer." Her mother screamed with a hoarse, broken voice. Sansa's eyes were fixed on her mother, but her mother saw nothing except the entity looming behind her daughter, arms outstretched, eyes glowing with crimson light. Sansa extended her arms to embrace her, and the black shadow behind her did the same, the sticky limbs mirroring her movement. Blinded by that overwhelming power, Sansa's only desire was to hug her mother, the same mother who had stayed by her side all that time. Step by step, she approached her, until her mother's back hit the wall with nowhere left to run. And then came the scream, a deafening shriek from the woman who was lifted into the air by invisible force. Sansa embraced her mother tightly, or so she thought. In truth, it was the shadow that wrapped its crushing limbs around her. It lifted the woman high, her legs dangling in the air. She died in that grasp, her bones crushed, her organs pulverized, until her limp body was dropped at her daughter's feet. Sansa stared at her mother's corpse with hollow eyes, until tears began to fall, and the voices rose. Kill, blood, death. The nightmare reached its end, and the princess collapsed into the darkness once more. Back in reality, she still lay in her bed, until her eyes suddenly snapped open, glowing with a radiant red light. From beneath her, a black ooze began to spread, dark, viscous, and alive. It swallowed her entire room before flooding through the rest of the palace at terrifying speed, like a plague devouring everything in its path. The princess rose, a haunting smile on her face, eyes glowing red as she stepped forward barefoot, and vanished. Like a ghost, she flickered from place to place, as if searching for blood. The darkness threatened to consume the entire castle. Then, from the edge of that abyss, a man emerged, wearing a mask and holding a lantern in his left hand. The blue glow from the flame lit up the blackness around him. He stood, bathed in the only light that remained. Oliver Kahn set the lantern down and drew his daggers, blades blazing with aura. "You again, human." The voice that echoed was deep and dreadful, nothing like the gentle one he had once heard from the princess. Oliver didn't respond. He charged toward the place where Sansa was hiding, but his blades struck nothing but empty air. "How long do you think you can stop me here?" Without warning, the shadows rose, forming hundreds of black blades around Oliver Kahn. Each one pulsed with terrifying power. "Time is running out for you, human." The blades shot through the air, ripping the ground apart, tearing the chamber to shreds. But Oliver vanished, narrowly evading their deadly strikes. He dashed toward Sansa, only to be blocked by a barrier of shadows, which deflected his flaming daggers. With a twisted grin, she conjured more tendrils, black, writhing limbs that clawed through the air. You cannot kill the one who owns this body. That thing, it knew too much. Oliver Kahn kept fighting, and he wondered, how many times? Every day, every night, Sansa kept losing control like this, and each time he was the one to stop her. But her power was growing, relentlessly, stronger with every night. Meanwhile, the masked guardian had long reached his limit. He hadn't slept. He hadn't rested. He couldn't afford to. Not when she needed constant watching. His wounds piled up. His strength had long since peaked. How many times could I have killed you? Hundreds of chances. If he truly wanted to, he would have ended it. But he didn't. He couldn't. Because he didn't want her dead. He wanted to save her. That's why he endured, again and again. Meeting her darkness with his blades, hoping she'd come back to herself. Please, Sansa, he pleaded. Fight it. Oliver's daggers tore through the shadows faster than sound, each slash laced with desperation. I'll stop you every time. So fight it. With precision and will, he ripped apart the veil of darkness, revealing her smiling form underneath. Time is running out, human, the demon hissed. Soon, you'll die by her hands. By the hands of the one you're trying so hard to protect. Then her body collapsed. The shadows evaporated, as though they'd never existed. Exhausted, Oliver Kahn dragged himself toward her, finding her asleep once more, peaceful and unaware. It was a sight that had become all too familiar. He caught his breath, then gently lifted her into his arms, holding her close. Please, don't make me kill you. Don't make me destroy the last person I have left. The last thread of my family. Chapter 267, Beneath the Mask. 4 days until the mission deadline, Oliver Kahn had once again subdued the princess. Barely standing, he staggered under the weight of exhaustion as he carried her limp body back to her room. He had to hurry and clean up the destruction from their fight before she woke. But the scale of these nightly battles was growing by the day, and it was only a matter of time before it could no longer be concealed. As he held her in his arms, a crushing pressure bore down on his broad shoulders. He had kept her locked in an illusion, one where everything was still fine, guarding the princess by day, battling her by night, a cycle that had repeated endlessly over the past few weeks. Oliver couldn't even remember the last time he'd slept. Yes, he was an SS-rank warrior, a man revered as the equal of Mist Umbra, master of the Shadow Court. But even he had limits. The solution was simple. Kill her and everything would end. But that was the one thing Oliver could never do. Worn down by physical exhaustion and mental strain, his thoughts wandered back. Sansa had once asked him, "What are you to me?" Why did he care so much? He never gave her an answer. But now, as he placed her gently on the bed and collapsed beside it, he laughed bitterly to himself. It's nothing special, girl. He reached up and removed his mask, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Beneath the mask was a pale, handsome face, perhaps in his early 30s. His most striking features were his eyes, one crimson red, the other a brilliant golden yellow. He lowered his head, finally allowing himself a moment of rest. I'm just an illegitimate son, your mother's half-brother. In other words, her uncle. He had been cast aside from a young age, abandoned as a child no one wanted. He suffered in silence, swallowed by a world of pain, save for one single memory, the only one where he had been treated like a human being, by Sansa's mother. She was the only light he had ever known. After being thrown away and left to die on the cold streets, fate stepped in. A powerful organization found him. The Shadow Court. They saw his potential and took him in, but salvation never came. Only more torment. He endured brutal training no ordinary person could survive. From childhood, he was forced to kill to stay alive, thrown into an environment where rats devoured each other until only one remained. And he survived. Trial after trial, court after court. He and Mist Umbra were the only ones to reach the 9th court. But neither made it to the 10th. Both were deemed failures. Still, he carved out a name for himself, gained power, built a reputation. Oliver Kahn became a name feared throughout the empire. But he chose to return to the one place he had ever called home. So much had changed. His sister had married Emperor Mikar and given birth to a daughter. Those were the best days he could remember. Yes, the court still demanded blood from his hands, but he had a place to return to. During Sansa's childhood, he would visit often, spending time with her and her mother, always hiding his face behind a mask. At first, he wasn't allowed near them, but the moment her mother recognized him, she welcomed him with open arms. As her only brother, that was the first warmth he had ever felt in a life drenched in cold. Those few years were truly happy ones. But nothing good ever lasts. It ended the moment the court sent him away on a mission. As soon as he left, it happened. The abduction. Sansa and her mother were taken. The Empire went into full-scale panic. Oliver personally joined the rescue force, unleashing everything he had against the Ultras. After a fierce battle, they finally arrived. But all they found was the princess, alive, amidst a mountain of corpses. And she was no longer the girl he once knew. Something had been done to her, something implanted deep inside. Blinded by fury, Oliver stormed the imperial palace, demanding answers from the one man who had done nothing, Emperor Mikar. If only he had protected them properly. If only he'd kept his family close. If he had acted like a husband, like a father. Mikar Valyrian, strongest man in the Empire. And yet, what had he done? Nothing. Worse, he planned to dispose of her. That's when Oliver snapped. He attacked the Emperor. They clashed in a brutal battle inside the Northern Imperial Palace. The battle ended in a crushing defeat for the masked man. He was no match for Mikar, the greatest spear-bearer in the Empire. Lying broken and bleeding on the ground, all he could offer the Emperor was hatred. "You're nothing but a king rotten to the core." Those were his words. A selfish man who cared only for his own gain. Someone who wouldn't hesitate to discard anything or anyone that no longer served his purpose, even if it was his wife or his only daughter. But unlike him, Mikar saw value in Oliver Kahn. "Despite your crimes, Masked One, I acknowledge your skill." The man once called Mist Umbra's rival. The one who reached the 9th court and survived it. "Let's make a deal, Oliver Kahn. A deal that would change his life forever." Instead of dying a meaningless death, Oliver Kahn forged an aura contract with Emperor Mikar. He pledged his loyalty to the very king he despised above all, becoming his high guardian and sworn protector. In return, the girl Sansa would live, and Oliver would take full responsibility for her and everything concerning her. Mikar Valyrian's move dealt a heavy blow to the Shadow Court, whose influence had been growing rapidly. He stripped them of their second-in-command, and they couldn't retaliate, because Oliver had become part of the imperial bloodline. From that day on, Oliver protected Sansa in his own way, forced to serve the man he loathed more than anyone, Mikar Valyrian. And now, here they were. The princess stood on the brink of becoming a monster no one could contain. And Oliver was the one accountable. He no longer knew what he was supposed to do. Fry Starlight's POV. I rose, drawing in a deep breath. With a strained smile, I examined the damage littering my body. Bruises, cuts, strangulation marks etched into every inch of my skin. But now I finally know the truth. I pushed past the throb in my head and stepped out of my room, unfazed by the pain. There was no time to waste now. After my last use of third-person POV, after coming face-to-face with that thing, I didn't stop. I kept diving back in over and over, confronting it again and again, until the moment it turned its attention to Oliver Kahn. With him occupied, I finally got deep enough to witness Sansa's nightmares, and the truth buried within them. I lived her memories. I saw what she endured, how the Ultras tortured her, how they planted that thing inside her. Sansa probably didn't recognize it, She had never seen anything like it, but I had. It was unforgettable, a central piece of the tragedy I had once written. That thing inside her, it was a demon seed, a sliver of a powerful demon's will, embedded into a vessel to draw out its power. Once its mission was fulfilled, the vessel would break. Now I understood what the Ultras had done. They let the Empire retrieve her. On purpose, so that she would erupt near the Emperor and kill him, then die. The demon seed is a fragment of a demon's will. It grants overwhelming power. But only temporarily. It's programmed with a single objective, and once that goal is achieved, it fades, taking the host with it. They intended to assassinate Mikar Valerian through his own daughter. Perfect plan. The demon seed is a curse, and curses like this have no cure. I knew that better than anyone. I was the one who created it. But the demon seed wasn't supposed to appear now. Not this early. It was something destined for much later in the story, which meant whatever was placed inside Sansa wasn't a full version. An incomplete prototype. An unstable version of a demon seed, holding a fragment of one of the most powerful demons to ever exist, Vayne, the King's Shadow, third upper seat of the 10. And precisely because it was unstable, there was still hope. A chance to save her without killing her. To do that, I needed something that countered demonic power. Its exact opposite. Only the bearers of light possessed such force. The race the Lord of Light came from. But I won't find any of them here on the earth, nor is there any way for me to reach them. Fortunately, some humans carry traces of that power. Heroes like Snow, the Sword of Vermithor, and the Saints. And that's why I was now looking for Uriel Platini. I needed sacred power, any kind I could get, if I wanted even the slightest chance against what's coming. With those thoughts driving me, I climbed the elite dorm stairs in search of Uriel Platini. Chapter 268. The Devil's Seed. I reached the 6th floor quickly, passing door after door until I reached the one I was looking for. I couldn't stop myself. I pounded on it hard enough to nearly break it. It was bound to attract attention, but I didn't care. I was out of time. All of this because of the final twist in the direct advice. Now, I finally understood why the system told me to visit Sansa every morning, except on the very last day. Throughout these past days, Oliver Kahn had been fending off the princess every night. And with each encounter, Sansa's power grew, reaching closer to its peak. On the final day, she would be at her full strength, while Oliver would be at his limit. That meant I would be forced to face her at the highest level of difficulty. And that was the hidden trap laid by the direct advice I had followed blindly. I need to act before it comes to that. Uriel Platini flung the door open in a panic after my loud knocking. She stood there startled, wearing nothing but her nightgown, which revealed quite a bit. But I didn't care. I stepped into the room without hesitation. Fry, what are you doing here at this hour? She gasped, taken completely off guard. After getting past the shock of my unannounced visit, Uriel's eyes darted over the wounds scattered across my body. You're injured. What happened to you? That doesn't matter right now. Listen, Uriel, I need your help. I grabbed her by the shoulders, my face mere inches from hers. Seeing the desperation in my expression and with a faint blush, Uriel finally began to take things seriously. What happened? I can't tell you everything, but soon, I'll be fighting a monster. A terrifying one that uses demonic power on a massive scale. Demonic power? She muttered, and I nodded. To deal with it, I need your help. She probably didn't realize it, but her powers were derived directly from the Lightbearers, making her sacred aura the most effective weapon against demons. How exactly can I help? I'm glad you asked. I extended my hand, and dark aura began to coalesce, slowly forming a black sword with a runed hilt. The moment it materialized, the pressure in the room spiked. Uriel's eyes widened in shock. It's the Dark Sister. Another legendary sword. She began to realize the truth. That I was wielding not one, but two blazing blades. But I cut her thoughts short and got straight to the point. I need you to imbue your sacred power into it. What? She looked at me as if I'd lost my mind, but I was dead serious. I want to give my sword the attributes of holy aura. The Dark Sister constantly amplifies aura. And with the system's inscription function combined with Uriel's power, I should be able to pull it off. Even if it would cost me every last achievement point I had left. Uriel was still struggling to process what I was saying. A sword with sacred traits? Like the Vermithor? I shook my head. Not quite. The Vermithor couldn't be replicated. That was impossible. I only needed to unleash sacred power once. Just once. All I needed was one strike. One single chance. That's all I ask from you. Please, Uriel. Just this once. Help me. I pleaded with the girl standing before me. She was my only option. I couldn't drag Snow into this. Using the Vermithor openly would stir the powerful forces behind him, which meant Uriel was the only one left. She was destined to become the next saintess after Urasha. Her sacred power was strong enough to rival even the energy infused into the Vermithor's blade. Uriel took a moment to process everything I'd just said, and the weight of the request I'd made. With a resigned sigh and a crooked smile, she finally responded. You sure ask for a lot, you know that? And I doubt what you're asking is even possible. Asking this of her without having built much of a relationship between us. It was unreasonable. I know what I'm asking is insane, but I'll do anything in return. I owe you. I couldn't afford to fail this mission. And Sansa was someone worth going this far for. I had decided. I would live in this world, hadn't I? This was the least I could do to make that happen. Anything, huh? Uriel shrugged in defeat. Remember your words well, Fry, because I'll drain you dry in the future. I'm fine with that. I trust you enough to make that vow. She ignored my words and focused on the Dark Sister. Let's get started. I assume you have a plan. I nodded. Yeah. All I need is for you to place your aura here. I'd make it possible with the system's support. Then let's begin. Uriel tied her hair back and placed her hands on the sword's cold edge while I gripped the hilt. Keep it steady while I connect my power into it. An SS rank sword won't accept external aura that easily. So this is going to take a while. Time? It was the one thing I didn't have much of. How long exactly? Uriel smiled. A few days at the very least. I couldn't hide the surprise on my face after hearing that, especially knowing I didn't even have that much. What? Surprised? You should have expected to invest at least that much time for something this unrealistic. Only 4 days remained. But I had no other choice. Fine. Let's do it. Uriel nodded and began channeling her holy power into the sword. The room lit up with her pure radiance as I focused as well, praying I'd make it in time, that this would be enough to finish the mission. As her holy aura poured into the Dark Sister, the blade released a wave of dark aura, rejecting the foreign force. My job was to suppress its resistance and guide Uriel's power inward. We both concentrated intensely, sweat dripping down as the process dragged on. The Dark Sister was a unique weapon. Its core trait being its ability to amplify aura, unleashing over 200% of the original power. That was why I chose it over Balerion. Once it absorbed Uriel's holy aura, I'd be able to redirect it, magnified tenfold, against the demonic entity I was about to face. Time passed quickly, both of us completely absorbed in the task. Eventually, the resistance began to wane. Channeling the power became easier and smoother. We could finally breathe again. Fry, what did you mean by demonic entity? With the pressure lifted, Uriel finally spoke, her hands still resting on my sword as she continued pouring her power in. I couldn't tell her the truth about Sansa, so I gave her the best excuse I could manage. I'm about to fight someone wielding immense demonic power. Like the Ultras and their demonic powers? She asked. I gave a weary smile. Exactly. Though in truth, Sansa's condition was far worse than most of them. Thinking on my answer, Uriel sighed, clearly frustrated. I just don't get it, Fry. If you're gonna face something like that, why not just take me with you? I could lend you my holy power directly instead of going through all this chaos. Uriel. Was she really willing to go that far for me? I knew. I'd always known how kind Uriel was. So kind she'd risk herself for others without hesitation. Which is exactly why I couldn't bring her along. Not against a foe that could very well kill her. I'm sorry. It was all I could say. No excuses, no lies. I just didn't want her involved. You really are selfish, Uriel said with a small smile, her pure blue eyes meeting mine. But once this is over, make no mistake. I will be selfish too when it's time for you to repay this debt. I nodded with a soft smile. Do whatever you want. I'm yours. Once I finish this cursed mission that's been weighing on me, I'll be more than happy to play that role for you, Uriel. And so, the two of us spent those long but fleeting hours together, sharing our powers in pursuit of a nearly impossible goal. Chapter 269. The Battle of Moon Castle, 1. Fry Starlight's POV. Huff. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself as sweat poured down my body. Clutching the Dark Sister tightly, I struggled to control the wild fluctuations of aura emanating from it. Uriel wasn't in much better shape. Her body drenched in sweat as she funneled every drop of her holy power into the blade. The entire room remained bathed in radiant light throughout the process, and time passed so quickly we barely noticed it. Too focused on the task before us to feel its weight. Just a little more, Uriel said, blood trickling from her nose and staining her lips crimson. Don't push yourself, I said instinctively, to which she gave a faint smile. It's far too late for that. There's no turning back now. I watched in silence as Uriel continued, her hands never stopping as she poured holy aura into the blade like an endless reservoir. White lines began to spread across the black surface of the sword, like veins etched into steel. To make Dark Sister compatible with holy power, I had to spend every single one of my achievement points. Over 5,000 in total. I was completely broke now. It was a sacrifice, one I had made willingly to obtain this strength. The process took a long time, so long that the room door was knocked on multiple times by those seeking Uriel. But we had sealed ourselves off from the outside world. And then, after what felt like an eternity, Uriel finally stopped. The divine glow vanished completely. She collapsed, her body drained of all strength, and I caught her instinctively. Did we succeed? Even in her condition, she prioritized the mission. I had always known there were still kind souls in this world. Uriel was one of them. I smiled down at her, exhausted. Yes, we did it. Holding Dark Sister in my hand, now glowing with white light, I could feel the overwhelming divine power she had infused into it. It was a complete success. But one that hadn't come easy. Hee hee. That's amazing. She laughed faintly as I carried her to her bed. It took 3 full days. Tonight was the final day before the deadline. I had used every moment I'd been given, barely making it in time. To be honest, I could barely stand after all the effort I'd poured into this. But I had no choice but to keep moving. Lying down, Uriel looked at me with tired eyes. I'm going to make you work hard to repay me, Fry. I nodded. You can do whatever you want. You've earned it. If I survive, that is. You can start by giving me your hand. I didn't quite understand the sudden request, but I offered her my hand anyway. She grabbed it with both of hers, and her body glowed one final time, transferring a gentle light into me. Immediately, I felt the fatigue fade, the exhaustion melt away, replaced by a renewed strength. Uriel, you'll need to be at your best for the battle ahead, won't you? She looked at me with weary eyes, fighting the urge to fall asleep. In moments like that, there was only one thing I could say. Thank you for everything. It was genuine gratitude. Good luck. Don't die. I nodded. I'd win. With those words, I watched her finally drift into unconsciousness, falling into dreams after 3 days of pouring every piece of herself into the blade now resting in my right hand. Her task was complete. She could rest now, As for me, I'm just getting started. After gently laying Uriel in bed, I rushed out of the temple, moving at full speed toward Valyrian territory. Night had already fallen, which meant the time had come. Tonight, the fate of the Empire will be decided. Sun Castle. Within a west-facing balcony, a young man with sharp features, golden eyes, and blonde hair sat quietly. Aegon Valyrian rested in his usual chair, his gaze fixed on the distant Moon Castle, the place where a long and bitter tale was about to end. "My lord, it has begun," said one of the men who appeared from the shadows around him. "Good," the prince replied calmly, as the knight carrying a great sword on his back asked, "Shall we intervene?" The knights were, quite literally, waiting for the green light to kill his sister. But Aegon shook his head. "No. We won't be the stars of tonight's show." Though he had long opposed his sister, who was he trying to fool? Sansa had never been his equal. Never once had she posed a real threat to his claim to the throne. Thinking of her brought back memories from long ago. We used to play together, all the time. She was his sister, a sister he had once been willing to do anything for. But now, what did the prince feel in his heart when he thought of her? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He laughed bitterly, speaking into the air around him as if addressing an invisible presence. "Isn't that right, my lord?" asked one of the guards, confused. Aegon waved his hand without even looking at them. "Pay me no mind. I'm just talking to myself." The knights said nothing. They stood in silence, obedient as ever. Aegon was the one who had brought them together, the one they trusted above all. Their stillness was proof of his absolute control. The prince smiled faintly as the final battle began, far away on the other side. Moon Castle, a hollow, lifeless fortress. Its cold, lonely walls had once echoed with warmth, filled with people who brought life to it, even amid winter's chill. But now those walls were drowning in shadow. A creeping darkness devoured the light, inch by inch. The shadows moved quickly, consuming everything in their path. Today, more than any day before, they were stronger, more hostile. The darkness swallowed the castle whole, reaching even the grand gates that led outside. There, seated in a wooden chair, surrounded by 3 lanterns casting a powerful blue glow, sat Oliver Kahn, head bowed in silence, as he exhaled slowly, feeling the shadows closing in from every side. The light from the lanterns dimmed instantly the moment it touched that suffocating power. Oliver Kahn, exhausted and worn, stood up slowly, fixing his gaze on a single point within the abyss. And there, through the void, those crimson eyes appeared, accompanied by a monstrous smile. "Sansa!" But it wasn't the reply he hoped for. "Your time has run out, human," she answered coldly. Her voice cut deeper than any blade could. At once, he drew his daggers, now cloaked in blue aura, twin flames burning fiercely in his hands. "Why?" he asked, but received no answer. His body, which had been running non-stop for over a month, and his soul weighed down by endless burdens. The High Warden had already reached his limit, both physically and mentally. But he kept going. Chapter 270. The Battle of Moon Castle, 2. He fought, to the bitter end. He took one step, then another. Then he began to run, rushing into the consuming dark like a falling star hurtling through space. With breathtaking speed, he appeared before Sansa, attempting to strike her down immediately. But she vanished, swallowed by the shadows. The darkness raged around him, manifesting into thousands of black hands reaching to grab him. Yet, with masterful movements, Oliver shredded through them, cutting the shadows apart at incredible speed, unleashing countless strikes that carved glowing blue trails into the void. He charged after Sansa, who weaved freely through the darkness, untouchable, unreachable. All the while, on every side, the black tendrils and shadow blades formed again and again, ceaselessly surrounding him, wherever he went. wherever his feet carried him. Oliver Kahn found only darkness closing in from every direction. Bit by bit, he could no longer chase the princess. All he could manage now was defense. Spinning a web-like cocoon with his blindingly fast strikes, a shell that held back the razor-sharp blades and shadowy tendrils lunging to impale him. Trapped within, even with all his skill and inhuman speed, Oliver Kahn began to take hits. The number of attacks raining down on him was simply endless. Sansa attacked from every shadow, from every angle relentlessly. Blow after blow pushed him further back. Had he been in peak condition, Oliver could have blocked every strike. But he was far from that now. His daggers, once weightless, now felt like they weighed tons. Something was pressing down on his entire body. Deep inside, he just wanted to stop, to rest. Haven't I done enough? Haven't I given everything? Those were the thoughts that filled his mind after countless battles, after endless struggle. He was still parrying the ruthless onslaught when he looked toward Sansa in the distance. How many times? He muttered. How many chances had he had to kill her? To end it all? But he never did. And here he was still fighting, exhausted, bleeding, worn thin. I'm begging you, Sansa. Boom! Explosions erupted around him as Oliver dashed at full speed, trying to escape the abyss of black shadows. Please, fight it. Fight it. Like I fought for you. That was all he wanted. But what answered him instead was deafening laughter, echoing from every direction, crushing his hope. It's useless, human. That girl has sunk too deep into the dark. Besides Sansa, who now raised her hand toward Oliver. A black sword materialized, radiating power so intense it shattered the ground beneath her feet from pressure alone. Sansa's crimson eyes locked onto him, her face twisted in a terrifying smile. She knows the truth now, the truth of what her own hands have done. She's finally realized that those weren't nightmares, but a grim reality she brought upon herself. He had shown her the souls he helped kill. I warned you. Swoosh. Like a missile, the dark blade fired at a speed beyond sight, scraping across Oliver's right side and carving a devastating gash into the wall behind him. Staggered, the masked warrior fell back in shock, but the shadows pursued him instantly. Maybe you thought you'd win this time too. More explosions. More darkness. Oliver was being pushed to the edge. How foolish you are, human. Now that her power had awakened, the chance of defeating her was zero. This power will keep growing. Every minute, every second. The shadow would spread until it devoured the world and everyone in it. Look, human. Look closely. At the monster that's grown inside me. That voice, through Sansa's body, howled, unleashing a wave of darkness to finish the battle once and for all. The shadows surged to slice Oliver Kahn into pieces. But suddenly they froze, forming a barrier around Sansa, a shield that caught a devastating beam of aura that had exploded against its surface. The attack had been blocked, and Sansa turned her head toward the castle gates, now flung wide open. There a young man stood. A black sword clung to his left hand. His eyes burned with a fierce violet glow as he stared at her coldly. You! The thing inside Sansa recognized him. Fry Starlight had entered the battlefield. Mirage! In an instant, Fry moved, splitting into over 1,000 clones that tore through the shadows surrounding Oliver with surgical precision. The clones converged, forming into one man standing at Oliver's side. The masked warrior, regaining his balance, stared at Fry as he stepped into the heart of the storm. What are you doing here? He asked urgently. Fry answered quietly. I'm here to help. Get out of here. This isn't a fight you can handle. Oliver stepped forward, trying to push Fry away as the aura radiating from his body surged once more. I'll be the one to end this madness. Oliver Kahn was determined to be the one responsible for whatever happened to Sansa, and Fry knew that all too well. From the very beginning, Oliver had cleared out the entire area for this exact reason. That's why Fry had been able to sneak in so easily back then. But now, there was no turning back. From behind, Fry spoke calmly. I can save her. Just a few simple words, yet Oliver froze in place. What? He asked, barely able to form the word. I have a way, Fry answered with unwavering confidence. But before he could say more, laughter erupted from the thing inside Sansa. A way to save her? The tendrils of darkness surged around her, stronger than ever. What a joke! The tendrils shot toward Fry instantly, blades of pure shadow moving at terrifying speed. But Fry saw them clearly with his hawk eyes. Before they could reach him, Oliver Kahn intercepted, unleashing a barrage of blinding blue slashes to shield Fry, placing himself between the two. His eyes remained locked on the young man. Kid, what did you just say? Fry didn't hesitate. I can save her from the thing inside her. His voice was firm, utterly certain. Normally, Oliver wouldn't believe such a claim so easily. But given his current state, after all the time, the exhaustion, the hopelessness, something in him wanted to believe. You'd better be right. You can count on me, Fry replied, stepping forward. Step back. I'll take this fight. You're not strong enough to endure it. I can handle myself. Fry raised his other hand, and a radiant aura flared, reflecting in Oliver Kahn's eyes. A fearsome sword manifested in Frey's right hand as he stood beside Oliver, a destructive pressure radiating from his slim frame, the Dark Sister. Twin blazing blades. Oliver muttered, recognizing a glimpse of Frey's power. The true starlight. Even in their situation, Oliver couldn't hide his astonishment, watching a mere youth wield not one, but two legendary swords. But the pressure Fry gave off was no joke. At the very least, he had proven he was more than qualified to stand here. Side by side, they now faced Sansa. The masked warrior stepped forward. I'll lead the charge. Support me from the rear, Oliver said. Fry smiled, acknowledging the recognition at last. You got it. One wielded blazing blue aura, the other a black and violet. Together they rushed toward her. Toward Sansa, the girl who had drowned everything in shadow. An endless, consuming darkness. Chapter 271. The Battle of Moon Castle 3. Moon Castle shook violently, as if a powerful earthquake had struck its very foundations. Within the dark domain unleashed by Sansa, the battlefield felt like outer space, deprived of all light. The only illumination came from the blazing auras of Oliver Kahn and Fry Starlight, who flanked the princess from both sides, pressing in from the right and left in a coordinated attempt to cut her down. In response, the shadows around Sansa coiled tightly, forming a black, iron-like dome of pure darkness. Both Oliver and Fry struck it relentlessly, launching a torrent of blows, each slash leaving behind afterimages and trails of fire as their weapons clashed violently with the strange, metallic barrier. With a wave of her hand, the dome erupted in jagged spikes, repelling both of them. A pitiful struggle. The thing inside Sansa scoffed, its crimson eyes glowing brighter as pulsating black veins spread violently across her pale skin. The demon had always harbored a singular obsession, an all-consuming instinct etched into every fiber of its being. Kill the Emperor. That thought wasn't just a desire. It was a command embedded into its very existence. He couldn't deny it even if it wanted to. Unlike Fry and Oliver, who fought to confront the threat before them, the demon saw this entire battle as nothing more than a warm-up, a prelude to the real battle against Mikar Valyrian. And he had no time to waste. Moving freely through Sansa's body, the demon let out a nightmarish scream. The shadows around it convulsed, then exploded outward in the form of burning skulls, their jaws wide open as if ready to devour everything in their path. This is insane, Fry muttered, surrounded by an endless wave of flaming skulls. Don't stop, Oliver Kahn roared, dashing into the storm of destruction with a flicker of ethereal movement, using his phantasmal form to block the incoming barrage. Fry followed without hesitation. 10,000 steps of shadow, the Black Cutter. Taking advantage of Oliver's lead, Fry unleashed hundreds of dark slashes, colliding with the swarm of skulls. The battlefield descended into utter chaos. Sansa and Fry clashed directly, aura against aura, while Oliver remained caught in the center of it all. Fueled by his blood form and aura amplification granted by Dark Sister, Fry grinned as he maintained his relentless assault. "You want a war of attrition?" His voice barely carried over the deafening roars of the continuous explosions, the result of every clash between skulls and his black arcs. "I can do this all day." With an inexhaustible SSS rank aura pool, and the power of Dark Sister amplifying every strike, along with Oliver covering him, Fry unleashed a storm of attacks, moving at a speed too fast for the bare eye to follow. Oliver Kahn watched it all, eyes wide open. He's matching a high-tier wave controller in ranged combat blow for blow. Not to mention the sheer volume and purity of aura his body emitted. Fry Starlight's evaluation had risen sharply in Oliver's mind. He was certain now. This boy could go head-to-head with any awakened SS class. Oliver had no choice but to give it everything he had. He refused to be outshined by someone barely half his age. Meanwhile, a deep scowl spread across Sansa's face, the demon inside her growing frustrated. Fry had completely countered him, forcing it to draw even more power against the defiant youth. But the moment it did, Oliver struck. A clean blow tore through Sansa's shoulder, forcing the demon to recoil. Its attention snapped back to the masked man. Oliver had protected Fry, and used the slightest lapse to land a decisive hit. If the demon ignored him for a second, he would punish it instantly. Annoying. The demon found himself completely cornered, unable to break free from the overwhelming synergy between its two opponents. They fought in perfect harmony, as if they had trained side by side for years. He glared at them both, more black veins spreading across Sansa's once pale skin. "The masked one is strong, but can't hurt me. The other is weaker, but his attacks bypass my defenses." Frustrated by being pushed back, the demon let out a furious shriek. The shadows responded in kind, forming a barrage of spears, swords, and spinning black blades. With both hands raised toward Fry, he unleashed everything at once, sending a storm of destruction hurtling toward the boy, who was still preoccupied dealing with the flaming skulls. At the same time, black tendrils and monstrous hands surged toward Oliver as well. The battlefield was so overwhelmed with attacks, it was as if chaos itself had taken physical form. The demon aimed to separate them. Oliver would likely survive such a barrage, but Fry Starlight lacked the raw durability of higher-ranked fighters. With a twisted smile, the demon sought to eliminate him first. By crushing him completely, Fry Starlight found himself facing a storm of black rain threatening to tear him apart. But he didn't hesitate. He charged straight into it. Drawing in a massive breath, he exhaled violet flames, forcing his body to release every ounce of aura it could produce. 10,000 steps of shadow mirage. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 perfect copies of Fry appeared. All of them ignited their swords and shouted in unison, 10,000 steps of shadow, Black Cutter. Each clone unleashed the same technique as before. A devastating wave of black arcs, multiplied 1,000-fold. The entire battlefield trembled as the attack exploded outward, shaking the very foundations of the castle. Frey's assault tore straight through Sansa's shadow dome, overwhelming it completely in a blast of raw power. Under the night sky that now loomed above, Fry had utterly overwhelmed her, sending Sansa flying, crashing through dozens of walls behind her. The clones immediately returned, merging back into a single figure who staggered, barely able to stay upright, breathing heavily. "Well done, Fry Starlight." Oliver Kahn rushed forward, seizing the opening Fry had created. Engulfed in blue flames, he launched a crushing assault on Sansa, who struggled to regain her footing. Piercing star. Crossing his daggers into an X, Oliver unleashed the full might of his strike upon her. The shadows whipped around her, trying to shield her. But the fire aura pressed in harder, forcing both powers into a violent clash. And then, the iron darkness shattered like fragile glass. Oliver's daggers carved 2 deep wounds across Sansa's chest, and blood poured freely before she vanished. Retreating back into the shadows, Oliver stood still, injured, blood dripping from the hole in his side. He stared at the spot she had disappeared into. He could have killed her just now. He was sure of it, but that hadn't been his goal. "Starlight, tell me you can finish this," Oliver said. Fry appeared at his side.
No.
"We need to force the thing inside her to come out. He couldn't do anything to her like this." Fry was drenched in sweat as Oliver prepared himself for the next round. "Things are about to get a lot harder. You don't need to tell me." They both felt it, the shift in aura heavy enough to thicken the air. Sansa had vanished into the dark. No, something else had emerged in her place. Something with wide-open crimson eyes, seething with wrath. Chapter 272. The Battle of Mooncastle. 4. It wasn't dead, but the demon had clearly lost that last exchange. Enraged, he no longer held back, relying now on nothing but its monstrous instincts. His next scream shook the ground itself, forcing Fry and Oliver to cover their ears before the pressure burst their eardrums. The demon wanted only one thing now, both of them dead. Adopting its feral form, the demon clasped his hands together, and the sky above began to quake. The shadows came from darkness, and the night sky itself was now the perfect source of power. Frey's eyes widened as he and Oliver looked up. The heavens had split open above them, and from that rift, a colossal black hand descended like a meteor, threatening to crush them, and everything around them. This is insane. How was he supposed to stop something like that? "Stay focused. We're still on the battlefield." Oliver's voice snapped him out of it. The masked warrior gathered all his strength, ready to intercept the falling hand. But before he could leap, the demon appeared out of nowhere, finally joining the fight directly. With one punch, he sent Oliver flying, smashing him into the ground. The demon didn't stop. He roared and charged at Fry next. Fry barely blocked the blow with both swords, his entire body trembling from the impact. Unfortunately, the demon pressed the advantage, crushing Fry relentlessly in a brutal, one-sided assault. Oliver returned immediately, slashing at the demon to draw its attention. But he was struggling, barely keeping up. His body weakened from his previous wounds and the non-stop battle against Sansa. He was running on fumes. Above them, the massive black hand was nearly upon them, ready to wipe everything from the surface of the earth. Fry hesitated, scrambling for a solution. Should I use ignition? It was strong enough to stop that hand, no doubt. But a move of that scale would take him out of the fight instantly. And if that happened, they'd lose. He stood frozen, his thoughts spiraling. His mind went blank. Damn it! Fry cursed with all his might, ready to unleash everything he had. But at the last moment, the sky flashed. It cracked wide open as a massive lightning spear tore through it, colliding with the black hand and obliterating it in a single devastating explosion. The scene was nothing short of surreal, followed by a thunderclap so powerful it echoed all the way to the capital. Frey's hair stood on end from the shock waves of lightning that tore through the area. The demon, stunned, withdrew immediately. "A lightning spear?" Fry muttered, his eyes narrowing. He and Oliver both thought the same thing. There was only one person in this world capable of launching such a thunderous attack. Mikar Valyrian? Did the Emperor just save them? But it didn't matter. What mattered was that they had been saved. That lightning spear had kept them in the fight. Without wasting a second, Fry lunged at the demon, his swords now blazing with black, destructive flames. Oliver Khan joined him immediately, launching a pincer attack from the other side, trapping the monster between them. "Don't just stand there, Sansa!" Fry shouted, slashing at the demon's thick skin. He knew the girl was still inside. Fight it! He needed her to resist. Fight it! Fry and Oliver pressed the assault. More! Until the demon himself was forced out, surrounded by blinding slashes that threatened to tear him apart. None of them noticed the shadow crawling beneath their feet, until it formed a massive circle, trapping them both. You cursed humans. Slash! They didn't see it. They didn't even feel it. Not until dozens of fresh wounds bloomed across their bodies, and blood soaked the ground. The demon had released an invisible cutting attack. Thousands of blades at once, so fast neither Oliver nor Fry could block them in time. Their bodies were torn open again and again as they quickly pulled back, trying to escape the death zone. The further they retreated, the less intense the cuts became. But that was a bad sign. It meant the closer they got, the deadlier it became. How the hell are we supposed to get close now? There was now an entire cutting field around the demon. Touching it meant being sliced to pieces. You're trying to approach me? The demon mocked. Black flames ignited on both his arms as his body swelled. Now towering over 3 meters tall. A fully formed monster. The demon had finally revealed his true form. You won't have to come to me. I'll come to you. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out as both Fry and Oliver barely dodged a massive beam of violet fire hurled at them. The black tendrils rose again, stronger than ever, while the demon rained violet fire upon them, layer after layer. All the while, the cutting field continued slicing at their bodies with every movement. They couldn't even counterattack anymore. They were like rats caught in a trap. The attack was overwhelming. Fast, deadly, suffocating. Oliver survived thanks to his vast experience and incredible speed. Fry fought back too, relying on phantom steps and hawk eyes to keep up. Everything moved in slow motion for him now, but even his heightened senses weren't enough to detect the ambush coming from behind. One of the black tendrils shot straight toward him, aiming for his heart. Fry saw it too late, leaving him unable to dodge it. I won't be able to block it, Fry thought, frozen, but then his vision was consumed by a brilliant, fiery blue light. A devastating explosion tore through the space around him, hurling Fry backward. He staggered, barely regaining his balance. When his senses returned, what he saw left him speechless. A trail of blood stretched across the ground, leading to Oliver Kahn, who had been blasted into a distant wall. His arms had been completely destroyed. His body was shattered. His mask broken, revealing his face for the first time. Fry stared in shock. Oliver looked back at him. One final glance. He couldn't speak, but his eyes said everything. Save her. Seeing Oliver reduced to that state because of him, Fry clenched his teeth, then turned toward the raging demon behind him. Dark Sister flared with a white glow, while Balerion pulsed with destructive black aura. Let's finish this. Fry pushed his exhausted body forward and charged toward his enemy. The battle was now one-on-one. Chapter 273. The Battle of Moon Castle. 5. Fry Starlight's POV. I felt dizzy. The roar of the towering demon before me echoed in my ears. A creature that had swallowed Princess Sansa, who was now trapped somewhere deep inside it. Blood poured down my body from countless cuts. The lingering damage of those invisible slicing attacks. That blood mixed with the sweat that drenched my skin, clinging to me after the brutal fight I just endured. Only a few minutes remained before blood form faded. And once it did, I'd be completely powerless. Can I really win? I asked myself. Oliver Kahn had placed his final bet on me. He chose to sacrifice himself instead of me. That meant I had no choice. I had to give it everything I had, or we were both as good as dead. I took a deep breath, gathering every last drop of aura I could summon, and stepped forward, slowly, painfully, into the demon's cutting field. Let's do this. My voice was barely a whisper compared to the deafening roars the demon let out as it hurled shadowy tendrils and razor-sharp slashes at me. I couldn't even see the slicing waves. There was no avoiding them, but I kept going, resisting everything else as I inched closer, one step at a time. My body was being shredded rapidly. The slashes grew stronger the closer I got. But I refused to stop. Fighting back the nausea rising in my throat, I screamed, "Sansa!" Swinging my blades with everything I had. I tried to push back the shadows as I shouted again. "Is this really what you want?" Boom! Explosions rocked the battlefield, but I kept moving forward. "Is this how you want it all to end?" I needed her to resist. Somehow, I had to pull her out of the despair she drowned in. "You're not the one who killed them, damn it. It was him. That damn demon." I pressed on, even as attacks rained from every direction, slicing through my flesh without mercy. "And even if you did kill them, who cares? I've killed far more than you, and here I'm still standing. To hell with them all. Just fight back. Live." I started shouting whatever bullshit came to mind. I was someone still struggling to find a reason to live, so I was in no position to bring hope to others, especially when I was so close to losing it myself. But I had to say something, because Sansa was still in there. Somewhere deep inside, she was listening to my pathetic rambling. The demon's refusal to attack me directly. That was proof enough. After he injured Oliver so badly with that last strike, I saw the hesitation in his movements. He tried to hide it well, but not from my hawk eyes. Sansa was still inside, but her presence was faint. The number of attacks pouring down on me was absurd. It was like standing in the middle of a hurricane, one that shattered my body again and again. The demon attacked from afar, never moving an inch, which meant this was my only chance to end it. So I made a reckless decision. I dove straight into the heart of the cutting field. As I got within a few meters of it, the slicing intensified. I cloaked myself in aura, forming a barrier to endure it. But suddenly I collapsed. My face hit the dirt. Blades rained down on me from above. And that's when I realized my right leg was gone. It was still standing in the place I just leapt from. That slash had severed it clean off. A devastating surge of pain shot through my mind, nearly overwhelming me. I clenched my teeth, cursing, forcing myself to rise. My entire body had become a bloody slab of flesh, laid bare on the demon's chopping block. Blood form was the only reason I was still alive, and it could end at any moment. That disgusting demon stood before me, grinning, but in those crimson eyes, I saw something. Regret? Sadness? Frustration? Despair? I didn't know what it was, but I knew. That was Sansa. I was sure of it. Accept yourself. God damn it. I staggered forward, channeling every last drop of aura into my left leg. And if you can't do it, then I'll accept you instead. So fight. Fight like I'm fighting now, as I hurl myself straight into hell. I slammed my only foot into the ground, shattering it beneath me as I launched myself towards Sansa at full speed. I flew, crashing into the demon. He wrapped his arms around me instantly, trying to crush me. But in return, I drove Dark Sister straight into the demon's body, taking a deep breath and praying I'd survive what came next. The black hands were moments away from crushing my skull. But before they could, I unleashed the sacred power Uriel had given me. That aura ignited violently, and I whispered with a strained voice, "Ignition!" Like a flood, Dark Sister lit up, glowing brilliantly, forcing the shadows back and flooding the area with light. And then it detonated inside the demon's body. The nuclear ignition erupted, unleashing an infinite surge of holy aura into the heart of the monster. The demon let out a blood-curdling scream as the devastating explosion fired a blinding beam into the sky. I saw his body begin to crack and split apart, the holy light wrapping around Sansa, shielding her from harm. The ignition released a brutal shockwave that tore through my body. And I hoped, desperately, that it had been enough to destroy the bastard. But it wasn't. The demon survived. His body was riddled with holy fractures, severely damaged, but he was still clinging to Sansa, refusing to let her go. My consciousness was slipping. The demon was still alive, and the tendrils were rising again, aiming to rip me apart. I was going to lose. Even the ignition hadn't been enough. It would all be for nothing. That thought, mixed with unbearable pain, made me spit blood in fury. Like hell, I'm letting it end like this. I bit down the agony, refusing to pass out. Then, with the last of my strength, I drove Balerion into the demon's body, right beside Dark Sister, with everything I had. With the last sound my shattered throat could produce. With a broken body and depleted aura lines, I screamed, "Ignition!" One ignition was enough to destroy me already. But here I was unleashing a second. More. I dug deeper, tapping into the black ocean of aura inside me, and released another nuclear ignition into the cursed demon. The monster howled, screaming in agony as the explosion consumed everything, erasing the entire battlefield. Its filthy, black body disintegrated before my eyes, vanishing piece by piece into white light. I saw nothing but radiance, followed by a deafening silence that shattered my hearing. But in the midst of it all, I saw her, Sansa's body falling from above, the cocoon of shadows around her finally torn apart. I didn't know if she had survived or died, but I had given it everything. My body was torn to shreds, inside and outside after triggering ignition twice. And finally, I collapsed unconscious. Everything went black, marking the end of my desperate battle against the fallen princess. Chapter 274. The Battle of Moon Castle, 6. Fry Starlight collapsed, broken and bloodied. No one could say if he was alive or dead. The entire battle lasted only 15 minutes from start to the end. But it captured the attention of the entire capital, especially the moment that massive hand fell from the sky, and the terrifying lightning spear that destroyed it. Moon Castle had been completely obliterated, the entire region wiped off the map. Many eyes had witnessed the clash from afar, among the scattered fragments of war. The first to awaken was Oliver Kahn. Without his mask and with a bloodied face, the High Warden rose shakily, glancing down at his arms, only to find what was left, 2 ruined stumps where his hands used to be. But his gaze turned, searching beyond the devastation. And there, he saw her, Sansa, lying peacefully among the rubble in her white nightgown, clean, untouched, as if she had never taken part in the battle at all. And then, "Fry," Oliver whispered, horrified by the sight of the young man sprawled nearby, so broken, there wasn't a single part of his body unscathed. The only thing intact were the 2 black swords still clutched in his hands, as if they refused to let go of him. "Damn it!" Oliver stumbled forward, using every last ounce of strength to run. But he barely made it a few steps before falling flat on his face. Still, he pushed himself up again, crawling toward Fry. The closer he got, the more he saw. The damage to the boy was worse than anything he could have imagined. He placed his ear against Frey's chest. There was no heartbeat, no breath. "Damn it!" Oliver gasped, panting with difficulty, his body glowing faintly with a dim blue light. "Don't die on me, kid." That aura slowly transferred into Frey's body. It was faint, barely anything, due to Oliver's depleted state. But still, he gave everything he had for the boy in front of him. "We did it." Oliver tried with everything he had left. "No. You did it. You pulled it off, Fry Starlight. So don't you dare die on me now, damn it." As Oliver struggled alone beside him, another figure stepped into view. He looked up and saw a familiar girl, her face pale, shaken, stricken with grief as she stared at Fry. "Is he?" Sansa's voice trembled as she spoke, barely audible. Oliver lowered his head in response. And when he did, she noticed his arms, what was left of them, blown apart. The sight only deepened her despair. "He fought for you," Oliver said softly. Sansa had seen it all. From the distance, she had watched the entire destructive battle unfold. Back then, she had been powerless. trapped deep within a muddy ocean of despair. Her mind bombarded by voices screaming for blood, for death. The demon had taken it so far. He even forced her to relive the moment she killed her own mother hundreds of times. But even through all that, she saw Fry, saw him fight with everything he had, saw him do the impossible. Now the voices were gone. The madness in her head had finally fallen silent. She was free, but none of that would have been possible without Fry. She didn't want to survive at his expense. Those feelings overwhelmed her. And unconsciously, her hand reached out. In response to that emotion, the shadows returned. Oliver leapt to his feet instinctively, startled, but this time they didn't surge out in violence. Instead, the shadows wrapped gently around Fry, encasing his broken body with care. Sansa watched in awe. She didn't even understand what she was doing. But seeing Frey's wounds begin to close slowly, she continued. And Oliver realized what was happening. She's controlling her power.
No bloodlust.
No hunger for death. Just Sansa, wanting to save him. Fry had used shadow and dark-based aura. Her powers were now attuned to his. She couldn't heal him completely, but she had pulled him back from the brink of death. This was the end of torment, the end of a long and cruel struggle. The voices were gone. That cold aura around her heart had finally vanished, replaced by a deep, radiant warmth in her chest. She had mastered her power at last, and all of it came crashing down on her. Sansa burst into tears, collapsing over Frey's chest, weeping uncontrollably as the one who had ended her suffering lay broken beneath her. Oliver Kahn watched his only niece sob like a child, and he, too, was overcome with emotion. He wanted to embrace her, but stopped when he remembered. His hands were no longer there. Despite the pain, despite everything, this time it had ended in salvation. For the lone warrior, and for the cursed princess, their redemption had been witnessed by many. High above, Mikar Valyrian, the emperor, stood in the sky, watching from afar. His eyes didn't linger on Sansa, nor on Oliver Kahn. They locked onto the boy between them, Fry Starlight. He no longer saw the naive boy from before. What stood there now was a terrifying warrior, 18 years old, yet powerful enough to defeat an SS-class awakened. The Emperor muttered quietly. Abraham, perhaps. This was the only talent that could compare to the little monster down below. Mikar stood in silence, torn between two paths, to make use of the monstrous power his empire had nurtured, or to eliminate a beast that might one day consume them all. He made his decision, and vanished, disappearing in a streak of lightning across the sky. That flash of lightning passed beneath the gaze of Aegon Valyrian, who watched from afar, smiling. "My lord, shall we kill her now?" asked one of the Round Table knights, but the prince shook his head calmly.
No.
Yes, he could have ended the princess right then and there, crushed her once and for all, but it would have changed nothing. His victory had already been sealed. The truth of Sansa's condition was now known across the upper circles of the empire. Let them have their moment, their deliverance. Aegon turned, staring into the distance, his smile deepening. No one else could see it, but he saw tears falling from unseen eyes. We'll let them live, while we keep moving the pieces from behind the curtain, as we've always done. Sansa will survive. With a chilling smile, the prince added, "Isn't that what you've always wanted, Aegon?" The knights around him paused, exchanging glances. Their prince was talking to himself. Gazing into empty space, he looked exhilarated, enthralled, as if he had just watched a performance no one else could see. He looked strange and terrifying, and just like that, the curtain fell on the show. Chapter 275, The Abyss Within. Fry Starlight POV. It was strange. Just moments ago, I had been fighting for my life. A brutal, desperate battle against a demon that tore my body apart. And yet, inside my mind, it felt as if only seconds had passed. Now, I found myself in a different world. A world of darkness. My body was whole again, uninjured, free of the horrific wounds I'd suffered just moments before. But this place wasn't unfamiliar. I'd been here before. It was the same shadow realm I had entered when I used third-person POV on Sansa. The moment I realized that, a bitter nausea crept over me. Did I lose? The presence of this darkness meant one thing. The demon wasn't dead. It was still alive, buried deep within. Even after using ignition twice, it still wasn't enough?
Impossible.
This wasn't even a full demon seed. The entities inside those seeds were just fragments. A tiny shard of will from the most powerful demons. It shouldn't have had that kind of strength. Those final blows should have been enough to destroy it completely. But here I was, once again, wandering alone through the dark. I wondered what had happened to me. I didn't think I was dead. Which meant something had pulled me into this shadow realm. So all I could do now was wait. Sit in silence. Wait for the demon to show itself. And so the minutes passed. Then the hours. One after another. I drifted alone through the void. Felt like I would remain lost here forever. But somehow I kept my composure until the very end. Why? Because I wasn't alone. From the very beginning, I had felt it. A presence watching me from a distance. Its gaze was like sharpened blades piercing through my skin, stabbing not just my body, but my soul, as if it were dissecting me, studying every inch of who I was. I didn't dare speak at first. That presence, the pressure it exuded, the chill it sent down my spine. I may still be just an insect compared to beings like them, but even I could tell the difference. This wasn't the same demon I had fought before. No. This was something else. Something far worse. Far more terrifying. Then, as if reading my thoughts, a voice answered from the darkness. Very perceptive. Fry Starlight. The demon's voice echoed beside my ear, sending a shiver through my entire body. It was a woman's voice. Who are you? I shouted into the darkness. And in response, the shadows smiled back. Twin violet eyes ignited in the void, glowing with unnatural light as they locked onto me, watching with eerie interest. I knew this was some kind of inner realm, a mental or spiritual space, but still. Her presence alone was enough to make my whole body tremble. And for some reason, I felt like I knew her. The demoness circled me, eyeing me with a wide, amused grin. You know who I am. How interesting. Her voice whispered beside my ear again, and I cursed under my breath. She was reading my thoughts. I didn't want to accept it, but it was her, the king's shadow, the third upper demon in their ranks. Vain. Knowing her identity only made everything worse. I was in real danger. Before me stood a demoness at the peak of the SSS tier. I couldn't do anything against her. All I could do was stand still and breathe. Even if this world wasn't real, even if this form was just spiritual, I was drenched in sweat, and my heart wouldn't stop pounding. Fry, Fry, Fry. She kept repeating my name, her grin growing wider with every word. What's your secret, Fry Starlight? She stepped closer. What are you, really? What are you hiding? With every step she took, my chest tightened, until she stood just a few steps away, and with each movement, I felt like my heart might burst. Tell me, Fry, why? Why would a worthless little creature like you draw the attention of the great king? And at that moment, she was so close, her face nearly touching mine. That was when I saw it. Just for a moment. I caught a glimpse of her true form, and I froze completely, holding my breath in terror, terrified that any movement might bring about my end. The Demon King, Agaroth, has remained dormant for countless years. He doesn't move, doesn't act. Just sits silently atop the tower. No matter how fate surged or how this world trembled, he never lifted a finger. Unaffected, unbothered, untouched. Vane continued speaking, her grin slowly fading. And then, out of nowhere, the king moved. For the first time in millennia, he showed interest. And the thing that caught his eye was nothing more than a pitiful little creature. A worthless human named Fry Starlight. She screamed. Her blackened hands seized my face, and a wave of power surged through me, flooding my entire body. From the very beginning, I tried to react, to resist, to move, to fight, to run, anything. But I couldn't. Her presence alone crushed me, and she shouted into my face, raging, "What are you hiding? Why is the king interested in you? What are you, Fry Starlight?" From her hands, a dark force began to spread. It slithered into me like molten lava being injected straight into my soul. The pain was beyond anything I had ever known. All I could do was scream and try to escape. But it was no use. "Show me the truth. What are you hiding?" My spiritual body began to fracture under her pressure. I felt myself slipping away. Felt death creeping in from all sides. Vain dark power wormed its way into the very core of me. To my essence. To every fiber of my being. Like fragile glass, I began to shatter. I watched it happen slowly, agonizingly. And the worst part was that I could do nothing. I was completely powerless. I stood motionless before her, helpless, waiting for death. Felt like this was the end. So amid my own screams, drowned beneath vain howling voice, I closed my eyes and waited for death's hand to carry me away. Then, in just a few seconds, everything shattered, and I fell into the dark. Fry Starlight's screams ceased. The moment his being broke apart completely. But right then, vain eyes, those of the third-ranked upper demon, flew wide open as she stared at the terrifying phenomenon unfolding before her. Just moments ago, Fry had been trapped within her domain. A shadow realm conjured by the king's shadow, a power given to her by the demon king Agaroth himself. But somehow, Fry broke it. He released a terrifying surge of power that completely overwhelmed her. A sea of violet aura exploded from within him, flooding the entire space. His darkness, its overwhelming mind, Frey's power now surrounded her. And she was the one trapped inside his domain, not the other way around. For a moment, Vane was so stunned that she forgot what she was even holding, when she finally snapped out of it. When she looked again at the human in her grasp, she realized it wasn't Fry anymore. When had it changed? How? She had no idea. But her eyes didn't lie. The being now before her was someone entirely different. White hair, a shadowy form, a face hidden behind a terrifying black mask. She was still holding him. He sat there quietly, deep within the abyss. Then, without warning, he raised his head slowly. Their eyes met. In that moment, Vane felt something she hadn't felt in centuries. Her expression froze, as if death itself had touched her. That presence, that face, that mask. She recognized it, and that was what terrified her most. She tried to flee, staggering back instantly, but a formless power gripped her in place. Even at her level SSS rank, even with all her power, she couldn't move. All she could do was tremble where she stood. It was almost laughable. How quickly the roles had reversed. She, a demoness who stood atop the world, now shaken to her core by a human who radiated the same presence as her great king, Agaroth, because he was the only one who had ever emanated something like this. So this is the truth. You're the one. Vane recognized him. So that's why the king is interested in you. She had finally found the answer. She was about to say his name. But in that moment he raised his hand toward her. And in the very next instant, the entire world trembled at his command. A storm of overwhelming force surged forth. A terrifying power that tore through the third upper demon in existence, destroying her completely. True, Vane didn't die. This was only a spiritual projection of her form. But that didn't change the fact. She had just been utterly obliterated by a human, a young man named Fry Starlight, and the moment he erased her, the man lowered his head again, slipping back into silence. As the dark world around them collapsed once more, everything fell still, as if the realm itself now waited quietly for the return of that ancient will. Chapter 276. A Peace Worth Chasing. Fry opened his eyes. A sharp headache throbbed in his skull. There were lingering aches across his body, but nothing he couldn't endure. He was lying in a room he didn't recognize, on a wide bed beneath an unfamiliar ceiling. Pain flared in his mind. A stabbing pressure, like someone trying to carve through his brain with a blade. His heart wouldn't settle. His body kept trembling. It felt like he had just survived a battle between life and death. Yet no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember anything. The last thing he recalled was the suicidal ignition he unleashed against Sansa. Everything that happened after, inside his mind, it was gone, as if someone had intentionally stolen the memory away. Slowly, Frey's senses returned. He glanced around, taking in his surroundings. It was then that he sat up on the unfamiliar bed. And beside him, seated in a wooden chair, was a familiar girl. She stared at him, stunned by his sudden awakening, too overwhelmed to speak. Sansa! Fry let out a relieved sigh. He had done it. He'd completed the mission. It hadn't all been for nothing. Sansa had thought of many things to say, to apologize, to thank him, but instead, she smiled. Welcome back. Fry sat up further, his body wrapped in bandages from head to toe. Welcome back, huh? How long was I out to deserve such a dramatic line? He laughed while Sansa responded nervously, concerned he might still be in pain. A week. Today's the 8th day. TCH. Guess I didn't break my record. The longest Fry had ever been out was an entire month. Back when he fought the Moonlight family. Either this time had been easier, or he'd just gotten stronger. Fry turned his attention back to Sansa, noticing the changes in her appearance. You're gonna have to do something about that hair. He grinned, nodding toward her new black hair. And your eyes too. Maybe try some lenses? Paler skin, long black hair, dark eyes. She no longer resembled the princess the world once knew. Fry didn't mind the change. But the people around her, they would. After all, she was still a princess. But Sansa simply shook her head. It's fine. I'm happy with how I am now. Fry was quiet for a moment, then nodded. So, you've accepted yourself. In response, Sansa raised her right hand. Black fire ignited in her palm. Yes, she had fully accepted herself. And now, she had control over her power. Frey's final blow had destroyed the demon inside her. But even that level of holy energy wasn't enough to eliminate the power of the king's shadow. After all, its source was the demon king himself. That power still remained within her, but the will that had once dominated her was now completely gone. Thank you, Fry. Truly. Thank you for everything. None of this would have been possible without him. That was a fact. Fry stood, motioning for her to drop the formal tone. No need to thank me. Just live your life the way you always wanted to. I will. But that doesn't change the fact that you saved me, Sansa said. Fry grinned mischievously. Isn't this the part where the princess falls in love with the hero after he saves her life? Sansa laughed the moment she heard that. And you're supposed to be the hero in this story? Fry shrugged. Not even close. I'm not cut out to be a hero. Saving people and saying fancy lines doesn't suit me at all. How could you pull someone out of the abyss when you were drowning in one even deeper? Sansa laughed again, remembering what happened during the battle. Yeah, it really doesn't suit you. Do you remember what you said to me when you were trying to make me resist the demon? She asked, and Fry feigned ignorance. Nope, don't remember. Really? Because half of what you said was either damn you, or some words I couldn't understand but definitely sounded like insults. Of course Fry remembered. desperately trying to survive under that barrage while being forced to say something that could push Sansa to fight for her life. It annoyed him so much that he ended up stuffing some profanity into nearly every sentence he shouted. Sorry, I couldn't find a proper hero nearby to handle that role for me. Most likely, Snow Lionheart would have done a better job. It wouldn't have worked if it were someone else. Sansa cut in. I survived because you were the one who came. Fry and Sansa locked eyes for a moment, and Fry immediately shifted the mood to avoid the awkward atmosphere. So, where exactly am I right now? This room didn't look familiar to him at all. We're still in Moon Castle, or what's left of it. That once majestic castle had been reduced to ash. Only a small part of it survived. The princess's home was now nothing more than rubble. So I've spent an entire week lying in the princess's bed. Huh. What a privilege. Fry joked just as the door swung open. The man who entered wore a mask, just like always. So much so that Fry could barely remember what his real face looked like. Did I interrupt something? He asked, glancing between the princess and Fry. Oliver Kahn, their battle companion, the man who had fought beside Fry. Oliver looked the same as ever, except for his arms, which were tightly wrapped in massive casts. Good to see you alive, Lord Starlight, Oliver said, as Frey's gaze locked on the casts. Your arms? The greatest injury of that final battle was Oliver's, taking the full force of a fatal blow just to protect Fry. Fry had always been okay with risking his own life, but having others sacrifice themselves for him, that was different. He already owed too much to his father. He didn't want to add more names to that burden. Luckily, Oliver reassured him. Chapter 277. The Turning Point. No need to worry. The church's healers barely managed to reattach them. I survived to fight another day, though they'll never be quite the same again. Fry let out a relieved breath. Glad the High Warden hadn't been crippled because of him. What's the situation? Sansa asked as Oliver pulled up a chair and sat beside them. The last battle caused a huge stir, and now, the fact that Sansa holds demonic power is no longer a secret. Oliver's words made Fry narrow his eyes. So what do we do now? It was a fair question. Things weren't going to be simple. A lot of powerful people are demanding Sansa's execution. They see her as a ticking time bomb. But she's in control now. She's not a threat anymore. Fry argued. Oliver nodded. That's true, but we don't have proof, especially with how different she looks now. He glanced at Sansa, a girl who had completely transformed. No one will believe our words alone. Then to hell with them, Fry muttered. Sansa clenched her fists. It's fine. This time it's my turn to fight. I'll take care of it. But as soon as she said that, Oliver gently placed his cast-wrapped hand on her head. No, you won't. You've fought enough already. But I've already handled it, Oliver interrupted. He paused for a moment before continuing. Turning to Fry, the princess has officially lost the succession race to Aegon. All her titles have been stripped. In return, she'll live as a normal person within the temple. Oliver explained the situation, apologizing as he did. I'm sorry, but this was the only way to let her live. He bowed his head, but Sansa immediately stopped him. Don't apologize. If anyone should be sorry, it's me, Oliver Kahn. He was the only one who had fought for her from the very beginning. He sacrificed everything, becoming the servant of the person he despised most in this world. Someone like that, who had given so much, didn't deserve to apologize. No one knew what kind of face he wore beneath that mask, but it must have been one worth seeing. You know, Fry, I really felt happy a moment ago. Oliver turned back to him as he spoke. Fry blinked. Happy? Oliver nodded. Yeah. Because you said, what are we going to do now? Not, what are you going to do? Fry didn't respond, and before he could, Oliver suddenly lowered his head in a formal bow, as if Fry were a king. Please, Fry Starlight, I can't always be by her side. The princess will be alone in the temple once I return to serving that wretched emperor. So I'm not asking you to stay glued to her side. But if anything ever happens, just save her once. That's all I ask. A high-ranking SS-class warrior like Oliver Kahn, bowing to him like this, Fry sighed and instinctively stepped back, smiling faintly. With her power, I'll be the one needing saving, not her. It wasn't the answer Oliver expected. Fry hadn't accepted, nor rejected. But for the High Warden, it was enough. And Sansa smiled, too. Thank you truly. It was a rare moment of quiet joy shared between the three of them. A moment accompanied by a soft chime. Ding. Oliver Kahn, SS rank. Current affection, 50 points. Oliver considers you an ally and a friend. He fully trusts you. Ding. The second notification was stronger. Sansa Valyrian, B+ rank. Current affection, 70 points. First threshold broken. The princess now sees you as more than just a friend. To her, you're as important as Oliver Kahn. Fry glanced at the floating windows in front of him. One connection after another. He was slowly becoming part of this world. The idea he once rejected now felt welcome. The princess's tragedy had ended, and the days passed. Fry Starlight found himself living a routine he hadn't known in a long time. Hanging out with friends, visiting the temple, living in peace. A normal life. For someone who was anything but normal. Yet somehow it had happened. He now found himself at the Starlight Estate, after being dragged back by his sister for the temple's weekend break. Fry had spent the entire day with Ada. Just the two of them. Like a real family. The only family he had left was right in front of him. And that made it easier to accept this new reality. Maybe this is the answer, he thought. The life his father had wanted for him. Fry smiled as night fell. Sitting beside his sister at a dinner table meant only for the two of them. Ada, holding a sharp knife, sliced the cooked meat with a smile. How many pieces do you want? As many as you like. You're the one eating, not me, she grumbled. Fry leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling. More at peace than he'd been in a long time. For once, he felt like he had found the answer. He tried to convince himself of it. Tried to believe that this peaceful, ordinary life was the future he should pursue, and be content with. It all seemed so unreal, but Fry accepted it. A loving family, good friends, a quiet life. It brought him comfort. But then again, who was he really? He was Fry Starlight, as if fate itself were mocking him. Mocking his foolish ambition. Fry sat frozen in his comfortable chair, unable to move. His heartbeat spiked, pulsing rapidly without his control. "Ha!" he muttered unconsciously, eyes drifting down to his hand, only to find it trembling violently. And the world around him had turned gray, a bleak, colorless gray that swallowed everything. He had truly wanted to accept himself, to accept this new life, but even that was too much to ask. Slowly, Fry turned his head toward the only family he had left, toward his sister. He stared at her in disbelief. His chest throbbed with a crushing pulse, each beat threatening to explode. And all around him, the lifeless gray crept inward, smothering the light. In that empty, silent world, the only thing that stood out was Ada Starlight's eyes. Eyes that looked right at him with a smile. Glowing crimson red, like a bottomless abyss threatening to swallow him whole. And in that moment, Fry Starlight's emotions collapsed in on themselves. Terror, fear, grief, regret, rage. He wanted to ask, why? But no words came out. All he could do was stand there, frozen, as Ada opened her mouth and spoke in a voice that echoed like a divine pronouncement. "Hello. We meet again." She spoke his true name, a name no one should have known. And in that instant, Fry understood. What stood before him wasn't his sister. It was a calamity, one that had descended upon him. to destroy the fleeting peace he had just begun to grasp. Chapter 278. The Devil's Hand. Fry Starlight's POV. It felt like every function in my body shut down without warning. When had it happened? I could have sworn. Just moments ago, I was sitting beside Ada. Just the two of us, sharing a quiet family moment. Free from chaos, free from the world. I was close, so close, to living the life my father had once dreamed for me. Once I had everything. Then I started over from nothing in this world. Building it all back piece by piece. It was brutal, but I did it. So why? The world turned gray. Every hair on my body stood on end, as if a bolt of lightning had struck me. I couldn't stop trembling. My lower lip quivered with a fear I couldn't suppress. I was so close. So why? Why? Helpless, I looked toward Ada. Why are you looking at me like that? Those eyes, crimson red, glowing bright, were the only thing not swallowed by the colorless world. Hello! It was her voice, my sister's voice, but the suffocating presence pressing against my chest, that burning sensation in my heart, that wasn't her aura. I already knew who it was. And so, trembling, the only thing I could manage to say was, "Why? Why now?" Ada, smiling calmly, her crimson gaze unblinking, sat as if upon a throne made just for her. "Why? You're seriously asking me that?" The one being I never dared to cross. The one whose presence alone could break me. And hearing my true name. The one I had before reincarnating. Only twisted my insides with nausea. The pressure crushing me wasn't even 1% of his real power. He was far away, only puppeteering Ada's body. And even with everything I had, I could barely breathe. "Why are you here? What do you want from me?" I wanted to ask 100 things. But the trembling, the uneven breath, they sealed my throat shut. Still, I had to know. Why had Agaroth, the Demon King himself, chosen to appear now? Sitting comfortably in Ada's form, he crossed one leg over the other, resting his arm on the chair's armrest, smiling without a care in the world. "What are you doing?" No, I suppose I should say Fry Starlight. "That's what I want to know." He asked a question I couldn't begin to understand. "What do you mean?" I fought the urge to collapse, struggling to stay upright beneath the crushing weight of his will. "You really don't know, do you?" Agaroth sighed. "A normal life, normal friends, a normal family." He gestured toward me. "A normal person. Since when did you become so unbearably dull to look at?" Fry Starlight. His smile faded slowly. And I still didn't understand. My thoughts were empty, completely blank. "What are you even talking about? What kind of madness was this?" Agaroth exhaled again and rose from his seat. "Fry Starlight, up until now, you've been guided by a strong fate, one tangled with countless others. Even your light eventually reached me." He began to pace around the room, speaking in riddles that only made my confusion worse. "To be honest, your pitiful little struggle for your family, as laughable as it was, still managed to be entertaining. Watching your climb from a small insect to a slightly bigger one, it made for a good show." Agaroth was speaking more now than he ever had before. Far more. And me, kneeling on the floor, heart racing like it was about to burst. I just wanted it to stop. He stopped in front of me, staring down. That look. It reminded me how small I truly was. So small. "From where I'm standing, you've got nothing left to offer. Fry Starlight." His words dug deep. A show? A struggle? Something ugly to look at? He had been watching me this entire time. The engineer, Weskier, Agaroth, all these beings circling around me. But for what? Am I? Everything I've endured until now, all the blood, all the tears. Am I just a show? Just something pathetic? Something you watch from above when you're bored? A worthless toy you enjoy watching suffer? Agaroth, still wearing Ada's body, leaned toward me with a smile that could freeze hell. "That's right, Fry Starlight. You've been nothing but an endless source of amusement. I lay there, speechless, crushed and hollow. Every fight you've had, every step you've taken, I've been there watching. I placed great expectations on you. And what did you do with them? His voice turned sharp, biting. Family, friends, sentiment, rubbish. He picked up that same wicked knife from earlier. Listen carefully, Fry. Your life, everything you cherish, depends on what you offer next. This little piece of happiness you're clinging to, this fragile world you've built. In an instant, he pressed the blade against Ada's neck, carving a thin cut that bled down her skin, and smiled. No! I screamed, barely able to move, as Agaroth laughed. Everything you love. Your family, your friends. I can end it all in a heartbeat. Did you really think I couldn't reach you, just because I'm sealed far away? His words struck deeper than any blade. The pressure around me was unbearable. I bit my lip so hard it bled, and forced the words out. Why me? Why are all of you obsessed with me? I tried to scream it, but he didn't respond. Instead, he asked, Who are you? I opened my mouth, but froze. What was the answer? Fry Starlight? Just a regular human? A failed author? What was I? Agaroth saw the confusion in my eyes and smirked. Blame fate. Blame yourself. It doesn't matter. Still holding the knife in Ada's hand, those crimson eyes locked onto mine. Just remember, I am always here, no matter where you go or how far you run. I will find you, so don't disappoint me again. Or else. Clap. He snapped his fingers. The show ends early. A clear threat. Chapter 279. Emergency mission. He could kill me or everyone I cared about, at any moment. Farewell, Fry Starlight. I look forward to your next act. Like he was bidding goodbye to a pet. A toy he could break whenever he felt like it. Then the pressure lifted. Color returned to the world. Ada's red eyes faded back to black. She gasped and clutched her neck in confusion, just realizing the pain. She looked at me, bewildered, not understanding what had just happened. Fry! She called my name, but I had already collapsed. Face down on the ground, my entire body trembling. Agaroth. I clenched my fists until blood ran between my fingers. How could I forget? That cursed being, the Demon King, possessed power beyond imagining, and among them one ability stood above the rest. That damned possession, the ability to take over the body of anyone not in a certain level, a level no human on this planet had ever reached. In other words, Agaroth could take control of anyone he wanted, whenever he wanted, without effort. He really could kill everyone I care about, without even lifting a finger. Fry! What's wrong? Ada grabbed me, panicked by my condition. But I couldn't speak. Not a word. What was I supposed to do now? I wondered. Why are these overwhelmingly powerful entities so interested in me? What do they see in me? I barely managed to survive against that thing inside Sansa. And that was just a fragment of the power from the third upper rank demon. Facing the real thing? It's unthinkable. What do they believe I'm capable of? Damn it. 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 I slammed my fists into the ground, nearly losing my mind. What do they want from me? Why me? Why now? Just when I was getting close. Just when I thought I'd found it. Why now? Should I cry? Should I laugh? What am I supposed to do when the most powerful being in the world holds a blade to my throat? I can't even imagine defeating him in my wildest dreams. So how am I supposed to stand against him in the nightmare that is reality? I cursed violently, then smashed my head into the ground in helpless frustration. Ada tried to comfort me, but it was no use. There's nothing I can do. Not against him. Not when the opponent is Agaroth. With dead eyes, I stared at the floor. He knows me too well. He knows I crave death. That's why he never threatens to kill me. He threatens the people around me. Before I realized it, I found myself laughing. A hollow, broken laugh that echoed in that ruined room. It's pointless. This is the end. That's what I thought. Until a notification suddenly flashed in front of my eyes. The system had opened on its own, glowing red with urgent text I'd never seen before. And when I read the first two words, I blinked in disbelief. Emergency mission. I'd never seen anything like it. So far, I'd only received side missions, main missions, and one final mission, but never an emergency. The system felt like it was about to explode in my face. And it all happened as a direct response to Agarotha's sudden appearance. As if even the one behind this damned system hadn't anticipated it. So now here it was. Isuingumea quest. Emergency mission. Return to the Shadow Sect. Requirement. Bring enough power with you. Reward. None. Penalty. Death of Ada Starlight, Danzo, Sansa, and all main characters. Time limit. 3 days. Accursed quest. Forcing me to return to the Shadow Sect. I laughed like a madman when I read those terms. Especially the penalty. They all know now. That threatening my death isn't enough anymore. They've all started using the people around me to move me like a puppet. Agaroth, the engineer. I'm just a piece on the board. A toy they push around however they please. Sometimes I feel like bashing my head into a wall. Just trying to understand why they're so obsessed with me. Agaroth barged in uninvited. And even the engineer, who supposedly knew my every step, didn't see it coming. That's why he scrambled to issue this mission. I gently pushed Ada aside and crawled back against the wall, eyes staring at the ceiling. I could feel 100 threads pulling at my limbs, binding me, controlling me. I had no strength left to resist them. I didn't even have a choice. Agaroth wants a good performance. The engineer wants me back in the Shadow Sect. But what did I want? It doesn't matter. I have no choice but to comply. To walk the path that others have drawn for me. Even if I don't understand where it leads. I'll keep moving forward. I'll keep fighting. To the very end. It had been a full day since Agarotha's earth-shattering appearance. When he used my sister's body like a disposable puppet. A tool meant only to be wielded against me. He dragged me back to reality the hard way. Reminding me that I had no right to the peaceful life I foolishly thought I could reach. From the very beginning, I was meant to run. Stumble blindly along a thorn-covered path I didn't even choose. The most ironic part? I don't understand any of it. I don't know why I'm here in the future, nor how the novel I once wrote became reality. I've been thrown into darkness, blinded, cut off from every answer. And so, like a blind man, I had no choice but to follow the emergency mission the system issued me, until I find the truth I'm seeking. That night, I left the Starlight household after reassuring Ada that everything was fine. When I hugged my only sister, my last remaining family, I realized just how delicate she was, so fragile, just a small bundle of flesh that could so easily be snuffed out. No matter how hard I tried to sound convincing, I knew Ada didn't believe me, not after watching me fall apart less than 24 hours ago. But even she gave up questioning me when I fell silent. I could tell she blamed herself. I didn't want her to carry thoughts like that, but I was already burdened with too much pain to carry anyone else's. After pressing one final kiss to Ada's forehead, I left the Starlight estate with bitterness clinging to my tongue. It hurt. It really did. To tell the person I loved most that everything's fine, when I knew damn well it wasn't. My next destination was the temple. I had to prepare for the quest. I needed to fulfill one of its key conditions. Requirement. Bring enough power with you. This was the first time the system ever required me to seek outside help to complete a mission. It meant one thing. I wouldn't be going alone this time. As soon as I read that line, I thought about recruiting the strongest people I knew. Oliver Kahn, maybe even Carmen Starlight, but neither was an option. Oliver was too close to the Emperor. I couldn't count on him to accompany me. Carmen, I needed her to stay behind with Ada, to protect her. As for others like Phoenix or even my sword teacher Melina, I didn't trust them enough to take them to a place like the Shadow Sect. That left me with very few options. Once I reached the temple, I entered my room and sat down on the edge of the bed, leaving the door wide open, waiting for my guests to arrive. Chapter 280. A Journey into the Unknown 1. Fry Starlight's POV. Every passing second brought with it a storm of thoughts. A whirlwind of negativity I simply couldn't shake off. The last time I faced the horrors of the Eastern Nightmare Lands, it took everything I had, alongside Smiley and Sad, just to survive. And now I wondered, what kind of challenge awaited me this time? What kind of threat would be so overwhelming that I was forced to ask others for help? I was lost in those dark thoughts when the sound of the door creaking open snapped me back to reality. The young man who entered was instantly recognizable. White hair and golden eyes that studied me with quiet curiosity. I could see myself reflected in those clear eyes that mirrored just how desperate I looked. "Sorry for the delay. It took me a bit to get your message," were the first words out of Snow Lionheart's mouth, spoken with his usual serious expression. I simply waved my hand in dismissal. There's no need to apologize. If anything, I should be the one saying sorry for dragging you into this. The message I sent Snow only said that I needed help. No context, no details. He must have been completely in the dark. Yet, all it took was a single glance at my face for him to grasp how serious this was. And he didn't complain once. "What happened?" he asked. In response, I nodded. "Well, since you're both here, I can finally explain everything." "Both of us?" Snow blinked, surprised. Just as another young man stepped out from the shadowed corner of the room. Lean frame, sharp features. Ghost Umbra had actually arrived first. The two locked eyes for a second before Snow offered a polite greeting, which the silent assassin returned in his usual cold manner. Snow and Ghost. These two were the ones I'd chosen for the journey ahead. Snow Lionheart. If he went all out without holding back, he might even be as strong as me, maybe stronger. He was the first person I thought of. Ghost Umbra, on the other hand, might not match our raw power, but his ability to survive anywhere and fight from the shadows made him the perfect support while Snow and I held the front line. I considered others. Danzo, Dawn. But I didn't believe either had what it would take to survive what was coming. There was also Sansa, but far too many eyes were on her at the moment, and she had only just begun to gain control over her power. She wasn't an option either. Truth be told, even I might not be strong enough to survive this. I was gambling not only with my life, but with Snow and Ghosts as well. That made me a hypocrite. Everything I claimed to stand for, I was about to betray. With that thought, I lowered myself into a deep bow in front of them, kneeling to the ground without hesitation. Neither of them expected that, but it was the least I could do. Before anything else, I'm sorry, truly sorry for what I'm about to ask of you. My head nearly touched the floor as I stared down, forcing the words out. To start, you need to know the truth. You're both aware of what lies on the other side of the world, aren't you? They both nodded in unison. The Ultras. That's right. But they're not the only threat. Every tragedy that's ravaged this world, all of it stems from the demons. Not the Ultras. The existence of demons proved something. That this vast universe hides more than we can comprehend. Things far beyond the minds of us humans who've lived our lives shrouded in darkness. I started laying out truths that everyone already suspected, which prompted Snow to interrupt. "What are you getting at, Fry?" In response, I revealed what I hadn't told anyone. There's a being, an overwhelming presence that stands at the peak of this world. A monster among monsters. A creature beyond human understanding. Snow and Ghost knew parts of my story with the Shadow Sect, but they had never heard the full truth. And now that the system had gone so far as to involve others in my mission, I decided to take a risk as well. I'm being targeted by that entity. a being whose strength makes even the mightiest humans look like toys in comparison. Slowly, I lifted my head to meet their eyes. He's the one pulling the strings behind everything. The demons, even the ultras. Had I said that anywhere else, people might have thought I'd gone insane. But neither Snow nor Ghost said a word. Especially Snow. He was dead serious when I claimed to know the true mastermind behind the enemies he sought to destroy. The final boss. The ultimate threat. To survive against that monster, I have to embark on a journey. A journey into the unknown. I don't know what I'm searching for. I don't know what awaits me. I don't even know the dangers I'll face. A journey into complete uncertainty. All I know is that I can't survive it on my own. Otherwise, the system never would have asked me to seek help. And now came the hardest part. What I'm about to ask of you is to come with me on a journey into the Eastern Nightmare Lands. I know how selfish this is, how unrealistic, but I'm begging you, my remaining family, and everyone I'm trying to protect, they're all in danger. Please, lend me your strength for this journey. What I told them was unbelievable. Like a fairy tale. A ridiculous tale about a young man whose existence meant nothing, somehow becoming the target of the most powerful demon in the world. The final boss whose face not even the heroes of the old era had ever seen. And yet, that entity now had its sights on someone as powerless as Fry Starlight. So there I was, asking them to join me on a suicidal journey deep into the Eastern Nightmare Lands. I wouldn't have been surprised if either of them laughed in my face or called me insane. And honestly, a part of me hoped they would. That they'd say no and I'd go alone. But the hand Snow placed gently on my shoulder crushed that hope. He looked at me seriously. Why are you apologizing, Fry? He pulled me up from the ground. Why would you even feel sorry? I should be thanking you. Thanking me? Snow nodded. We've finally found him, Fry. Or rather, he found you. The Demon King. The one responsible for everything we've endured. Hearing him say what I expected brought me no joy. That monster isn't just your enemy, Fry. He's mine too. He's the enemy of everything still breathing in this world. And if your success on this journey can give us even the slightest chance to fight back. Snow, in his usual heroic resolve, raised his sword. That's more than enough reason for me to lend you my blade. It was the kind of answer you'd expect from someone like him. But what meant the most was that he actually believed me. I was about to thank him when I remembered the other person standing in the room. Ghost Umbra crossed his arms and sighed. That story of yours sounds like pure fantasy. Something straight out of a delusional dream. But then again, everything I've seen from you so far also felt like fantasy. He'd witnessed the impossible become real, again and again, and all of it centered around me. Ghost wasn't one for speeches. As usual, he kept it short. There's no light without shadow, right? I'll be that shadow for you. That sealed it. They were both coming with me on this journey. Thank you, really. Thank you both. Their willingness to follow me into the unknown brought me both relief and guilt. That night, a temporary team was formed, 2 swordsmen and 1 assassin.